Today's podcast is brought to you by Stealth Outdoors. The off-season's a great time to rehab your gear, so head on over to Stealth Outdoors at www.stealthoutdoors.com to pick up some climbing stick wraps, cam buckle covers, platform cable wraps, or stealth strip rolls for all of your miscellaneous silencing needs. Today's show is also made possible by Hunting Beast Gear, innovators in mobile hunting gear and the designers of the Beast Sticks and Beast Stand. Check out the latest products at www.huntingbeastgear.com. And now, on to the podcast.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. Happy Thursday. Happy Thirsty Thursday, whatever you want to call it. One more day for the week. We're back with another episode, a bonus episode for you guys this week. Dan, how are we doing tonight?
I'm alive.
Yeah, I feel like I haven't talked to you in forever. Less than 48 hours. Maybe yesterday and a little bit today, too. But like I said, welcome back, everybody. I'm your host, Scott Biskobing, and I am joined with the hunting beast himself, Dan Infault. We got a special episode tonight. We have our good friend, Scott Gagliano from Max's Deer Recovery on. We're going to bring him on in just a second, but real quick, we're going to make mention of one more time for you guys. Actually, we'll probably do it again next week, too. We got Huntstock coming up. Come check out Dan Infault as well as some other living legends, Barry Wenzel, Johnny Eberhart, Hal Blood, C.T. Carl, and many more for a star-studded affair out in Westminster, Massachusetts. That's coming up next weekend. Tickets are still available. You can actually get tickets the day of. I recommend checking out Hunt Suburbia's Facebook page as well as Huntstock and that for some more detail. I know one of the Pats just put out a video earlier this week going over some of the details. So for any of you that want to travel or out in the East Coast area anyways, make sure you come out and say hi to us at Huntstock next weekend. Dan and I will find our way out there one way or the other. It'll be the blind leading the blind flying out to Massachusetts because neither one of us are big flyers. So
yeah, I just figure I'm going to start hitchhiking tomorrow.
It might not be a bad idea. We'll just pull like a red flyer, a radio flyer wagon behind us with all of our gear, and we'll be good. So, all right, let's bring on Scott, Mr. Scott Gagliano from Max's Deer Recovery.
Hey.
Good evening, sir. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to be an interesting episode. Just from the conversation that you and I had yesterday, I think we were on the phone for almost hour and 15, hour and 20 minutes last night, just talking about different things. I'm like, buckle up, guys. This is going to be another Jared Scheffler type show for you. We got some stuff to talk about, and but I think very educational stuff. Even if you're not really into tracking deer, or if you've never used a dog to track deer, I think there's a lot of valuable information here. Just for hunters in general, like kind of knowing what to do, even some of the things that you've discovered over the years about deer behavior, wounded deer behavior, I think is going to be extremely interesting for the audience. So we're also joined by Brian Mirek, who works with Scott. We're going to bring him on in just a moment, but I want to just, before we bring Brian on and we start getting into some of these stories here, we're kind of going off that theme that we've been doing here recently with our top fives. But this is going to be a little bit different. I think we're going to have some more stories than just five to talk about, and each one's going to be unique in its own respect. So, but let's start out talking about Max's Deer Recovery. Go ahead and grab a screenshot of that, folks, if you're in the southern part of Wisconsin here. Keep that number handy. But, Scott, tell us a little bit about how this started for you.
Well, this started, Max is 6.5. So 6.5 years ago. It was just a coincidental thing. My wife and I were in Door County, and that's when they actually had Deer Fest in Washington County.
Mm-hmm.
We happened to be on the way home. Well, my good buddy Sam Ubel from Chase Nation had tickets, and he gave me 2 tickets. And we were coming back, and we're like, yeah, we'll stop on the way back. So anyways, we walk in the door, there's puppies. So we started playing with them a little bit, and me and my wife were like, should we get one? And they were like, no. And then we went over by Ubel and his group and talked there. Anyways, came back and there was 2 yellows and a chocolate. Well, I wanted a chocolate. Well, the chocolate was gone already. So, anyways, we just played around with the puppies and ended up taking the one that we liked the best, which happened to be Max. Then, we got him home. And at this point, I had no idea that I was going to train him for tracking deer. We were I brought him home and I'm like, I just don't want to have a dog to have a dog. I'm like, I want to have a dog to have a purpose. And I really never bird hunted enough to justify, going twice a year. Um, well, then I'm like, came up with this crazy idea. Oh, I'm going to train him to track deer. So, anyways, at this point, I was already on the Wisconsin Deer Tracking Network page,
Mhm.
and I messaged some of the veterans on there, and they helped me out and got me started. And my whole intent in the beginning was just like everybody else's, just for me and my friends. Well, it's kind of one of those. It just kept snowballing. One thing led to another, to another, to another, and boom! All of a sudden, there we are. We're tracking for the public. Um, and then came Dan Infalt. And honestly, I am so grateful for that because that was Max's biggest break in his career was when we went and tracked Dan Infalt's deer. Like, so I got the call from a buddy of a buddy. And and my buddy calls me and says, "You are never going to guess in a million years who you are going to track for tomorrow." I'm like, "I have no idea." He goes, "Dan Infalt." I'm like, "No way." So, anyways, Dan and I talked the night before a little bit. Anyways, so the next day we're heading out there, and I look at Max, and Max is only, I believe, he's only 2.5 at this time. Dan, that was probably like 4 years ago, right?
Yeah, right on. I think it was 4 years ago.
Okay, so Max would have been 2.5. And we're driving there, and I looked at Max, and I'm like, I go to him, I go, "You better bring your A game today, buddy." So that was kind of the beginning of basically Max's career. I mean, that year was insane. The phone calls I got from all over the country. I mean, I was getting Texas, Alabama. I mean, and not even guys talking to me about tracking, but they were so uh, interested in what we did, and they're like, "That was the coolest thing I've ever seen." And I mean, it was neat. And honestly, now that I am where I am today, to me, it's an everyday. It's like your job. You go to your job every single day, and you know what you have to do today.
Mm-hmm.
And every track to us, it is just a track, but it's our job, and we see it all the time. But the people that you have never been with you on a track and then they come on a track, a lot of people just their mouths drop on some of the things that these dogs can do. Trust me, my mouth drops at times on this dog. You know, um, yeah,
Well,
because he's. Oh, sorry.
no, I was going to say that's awesome. And I don't want to waste any more time. And not that this is a waste of time. I just want to really get into some of these stories because some of the things that you and I talked about last night, I'm like, this is going to be some good stuff here. And I know we have a lot of information to get to, but why don't we go ahead and why don't we introduce Brian here right away? Let's bring Brian onto the screen. How's it going,
Hey, Brian.
Brian? Oh, you got to unmute yourself.
All right.
There you
Better?
go.
There you
Yep.
are.
All right. Good evening.
How are you?
I'm great.
Good. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got started with Max's deer recovery?
Yeah. So Scott and I were friends through just muskie fishing mainly. And then, of course, when you know that each other deer hunts, you talk about that stuff, at the bait shop and whatnot. I was actually driving home from Green Bay muskie fishing. and I was walking through the deer fest, and I ran into Scott and his wife holding Max when he bought him that day. He first time I saw him, I'm like, oh, it's dangerous to hold a puppy. And the next time we came around the building, he's like, I'm buying it. I saw him the day he bought him and whatever, but then how I got into getting addicted to helping Scott out with this and chasing Max around all fall was I had to use it, right? So I mean, hey, need a hand here. Had tracked a deer for my dad, and then when my son was 11, he shot his first buck with the bow. Um, I I just the way the deer was standing, I was sitting right next to my kid, and I couldn't see exactly where the arrow hit the deer. Um, and he said it felt a little back. So I thought I saw the deer go down after about 100 yards, but I said, we'll wait. Scott came the next day. Max tracked it. It was right there. It was a nice 100-yard track. But then there were some more tracks needed. And then this was actually the track that you have up on the screen right here. This was really the track where I learned more and kind of realized that this is like I have dogs myself. I bird hunt with them, so
Sure.
I like reading dogs. Can read them better than most humans. But the track for that one. So that was a buck shot in 2019, I think. Yeah. Or no, 2021. Sorry, 2021.
Okay.
And so my son was actually sitting with me. It was a week after. He had shot his buck the week before. He's sitting with me. Right when I shot, I felt it was back. And he told me, 11-year-old kid looked at his dad like way back, And it was liver. It was a classic liver hit. He hunched up. We could watch him go through a hardwoods for a while, watched him walk off. We always tell hunters in that situation, right? We don't want you to ever walk the direction the deer went and things like that. And Scott's already told me, and I've learned already from him at that point. And so we sat in that tree I shot it at 9 o'clock in the morning and didn't start walking out until 1 o'clock in the afternoon because I wasn't sure how far it went before it laid down.
Sure.
Scott, we came in, we left it alone. We came in the next morning, and Max did an amazing job taking us to this first bed, which was probably about 300, 400 yards. It was pretty open hardwood. So I figured he was going to go wild before he laid down. And Max tracked us to that pretty quick. I mean, that had to be 10 minutes, maybe. But then it's like we got stuck, and there was like a spot of blood here, a spot of blood over there. And we found a couple beds there, and we realized, and actually Max lifted his leg at one point, and that indicates coyotes. We've learned since then, but I don't think we knew that at the time. But he finally took, I don't know, was it 25 minutes or so, Scott? Something like that, maybe 30. And then he finally got his way out of there, and you could tell the coyotes chased it, got it along. Once he got out of there, it was us running with the lead, keeping up with him. I've got my kid behind us asking to, show blood. He finally just yelled, "There's blood everywhere!" At this point, the coyotes must have gotten enough of it and opened it up, and he did a big loop, and we came right to the deer. And it was a learning moment. I mean, Scott had told me, learning about the coyote stuff on that and everything. And so after that, I just told him, you ever need another guy to go along, and my son being lower to the ground and really good eyes, Scott's like, bring him along to verify blood. For a while there, he was a really good tool and asset with us as well. But yeah, and that got it going. And then there was another time tracked for my dad, and Scott couldn't go, so he let me track him by myself. I took a deer over a mile. It lived. I was actually that one lung one, Scott. I don't know if you want to get into that yet, but that one lived for a while. We ended up killing it later, but he had a call for another track out in that area where I hunt, out where Dan is, and so I went and did that with my son, and we went and found a real personal best buck for a young guy. I think he was just graduated college, 22, 23 years old, and Then I kind of told Scott, if you ever need a hand, let me know. And then I've been addicted to it ever since.
Yeah, I mean, for us tracking deer, it is an addiction. I mean, I still enjoy killing big bucks, absolutely. Um, if I was ever given an ultimatum, I would track deer hands down.
So,
To me, it's I'm still in the woods, and I'm still part of a hunt.
Sure.
You know, and trust me, there is some pleasure involved when your dog does what your dog does, and there's some satisfaction at the end that what this dog just did um, for these people, that they would have never in 100 years found that deer without that dog. So there's a huge satisfaction there. And honestly, I'll tell you what, I've never had so many man hugs in my life. When you're finding these deer for these guys, and I mean, trust me, there's even been emotional, you know, when you find their buck of a lifetime, and all of a sudden, guys start freaking, you know, little bit of tear comes down, and you're trying to, hold it together, because I mean, I get it, I understand it, I totally get their feeling, and yeah, it is an addiction, and it's actually an addiction that I'll take with me till the day I die.
The one thing, if I can interrupt you for a second, that I thought about when Brian was talking was that a lot of the times when I've gotten a bad hit, and you gotta search for a deer, those have been real learning moments, and I'd hate to go away from that and not have those moments. And not to knock something, but like a drone, if they just go find that deer, you miss that, where that dog would find it too, and your dog teaches you so much.
Oh, 100%.
Like that backtrack and stuff, the J hooks and stuff, and you start seeing stuff what the deer is doing. And I would imagine that you being on all these tracks, you've learned what I've learned in tracking by tracking blood, that deer will do certain things. You can start to know when he's going to bed up, and you can know when he's going to be around, and you start learning a whole lot about these deer.
And some of those maneuvers, you can almost tell if you're actually that deer's going to be dead or not. And even just what the deer does, but also obviously most of it's in the dog behavior. The dog tells us the story. I can usually tell within the first 200 yards if we're finding a dead one at the end or not.
Yeah.
No, don't get me wrong. There has been some where the dog has actually shocked me. We found a deer that he was dead, and he wasn't acting like it was dead. There has been a couple of those moments. Not many. If the deer is dead, he knows that. I mean, there just has to be something with the odor that's different, and he knows that. And then basically, if it's dead, the dog loses his mind, and he's actually kind of a bull. And if I got to yell at him to slow down, that is a very good sign.
Yeah.
That means there's most likely a dead one at the end.
All right. Well, Scott, should we get started here and bring up this first track job, and you can talk about this one here?
So yeah, this one here, Hunter shot it. Let's see, I was in there in the evening. He shot it in it one evening. That evening, he went and tracked it and jumped it out of its bed. Then actually a drone came in and searched and couldn't find it. That drone operator actually called me to go help because he had a good feeling that deer was dead and he just couldn't find it. So anyways, we go there, and the things this deer did was definitely odd. I mean, you get some of these tracks that things are textbook, but then you get some of these tracks where things are odd. And this was an odd one. Yes, we get a lot of left turns, right turns. I mean, the deer do 90 degrees all the time, but this one was there was like 3 backtracks on it, which means a deer walked 100 yards and then turned around and came back 75 and then cut in. So we have to figure all that out. And usually we can tell in the dog is all of a sudden, boom, he's tracking, all of a sudden, boom, he just stops. I always told Brian, as soon as that head comes off the ground, you stop and you don't move and you let him correct himself. He will tell you if you stopped him for no reason and he's right, he will tell you he's right. But as soon as that head pops up, we always stop. And it took me a while to get through it. But yeah, this deer basically was bedded up. His first bed was in 300 yards or so. And it was bedded in a buckthorn thicket, which a lot of times I see that a lot, especially down here because there's buckthorn everywhere. So anyways, we get through this buckthorn thicket where these guys bumped it out. Well, then it ran clearly into the neighbor's gravel pit. We always talk about scenting conditions, and this is one of them where now I'm starting to panic because it's a gravel pit. It's all solid rock, gravel everywhere. Well, gravel doesn't hold scent.
Sure.
So we had to get through a patch of about 300 yards, and actually, he actually walked me through it. So there was enough scent for him to pick that up and walked me through it. So then we get to a bean field. Well, this bean field happened to not be his. It was another neighbor, so he had to call that neighbor. So we had to sit the dog down and wait for that. And at this point, Max knows it's dead. I mean, the dog is he's losing his mind again. And so when he loses his mind, I can't hang on to him if we're sitting there waiting. I tie him off to a tree. Just he's so this dog is so powerful, it's unbelievable. And when they're dead, like I said, he's going. And he has learned to slow down, but yet he still moves. So anyways, we get an answer. We get through this bean field. Well, now there's a house right on the corner. So basically it's like a 90-degree intersection there, and there's a house on the corner. And we get through the people's backyard and we cross this highway. Well, now we're into another person's property. Well, anyways, so again, I got to tie him off to the tree. So I tied him off to the tree and finally get permission and we start going. And all of a sudden, there's a big dirt. I remember there's kind of a small gravel pit, I guess you'd call it. Well, this deer turned left to go into this gravel pit, but he had nowhere to go. It was a solid cliff. And why he did that, I don't know. It almost makes me wonder if he actually beds in there. It's really weird because he walked up to that cliff, around the cliff, and then we got to this point, which that I would believe. I mean, I've learned a lot from Dan about hill country bucks. And where this area had some elevation to it. And when we got to this point, sure enough, there's a bed there, a bloody bed. So anyways, at this point, now the dog he hasn't settled down. He's still going crazy, but I noticed he was just a tad slower than he was earlier, which is telling me now that scent profile changed a little bit.
And what do you mean by that?
Our dogs track interdigital, which is in the front hooves of a white-tailed deer. That's how deer communicate all the time, through that interdigital. Well, when they're wounded, they emit more odors. Well, that's the odor that our dogs pick up on. So I noticed that change because he slowed down. And usually his slowdown means it's not as strong as it was, so I got to look for it, which is in my head is telling me I wonder if this deer's not going to be dead, even though everything said it was dead. The arrow said it was dead. The blood said it was dead. The deer action said it was dead. And so anyways, so we continue on, and now we get in this open hardwoods, which, I mean, it doesn't surprise me because we've seen so many times where deer go. I mean, there is really no rhyme or reason sometimes, especially when they are dying. There's no rhyme or reason where they go. So, anyways, yeah, we're going, and we get into this thicket again, and now I'm thinking, okay, is this thing going to be alive in here, and we're going to have some problems just because, like I said, his behavior changed. But it was a subtle behavior change. It wasn't enough for me to totally say it's not dead yet. So then we go into this little thicket, get through this thicket, and all of a sudden, boom, there's this deer. And he's laying, and where he's laying in that picture, I mean, he was in the wide open. So that deer ran till he was dead.
Okay.
And that's, we want to discuss rut and what these deer do during rut, and the differences on, how crazy they are compared to early season. Because that rut it drives these bucks are crazy. Like Brian and I have talked many times, like we're nervous to shoot a deer, because it's like we see that they are hard to kill. They're harder to kill than you think.
Yeah, it's true.
Even perfect shots, these deer do go a long ways. This track ended up at a little over a mile. And hence why the drone operator had difficulty, because by law they have to keep the drone within visual sight. Well, unless you're in the middle of a open field, it's hard to see a mile. Normally where you're hunting deer isn't in an open field; it's in the woods. So you'd have to find an open field in order to at least see a mile. So, anyways, that was the reason, was distance and direction. They flew more south because that's the way the deer started, and then he ended up going east. And but once he got past that gravel pit, then it was pretty much a straight line. He was about, I'd say, 300 yards a straight line. Never turned, never nothing until we seen him dead right there. So I'm wondering if he got into that little gravel pit I was talking about, and he was thinking about bedding down, but that was so close to the road, I thought that was odd. And then changed his mind, or something spooked him or whatever, and then he kind of ran out and around, went through that point, and then it went down a hill. So we were actually at the kind of a bottom, like almost a little valley right there. There's a hill to the left, a hill to the right, with a little flat spot in the middle there, and that's where he was laying dead.
Okay. Scott, let me ask you this. When you were talking before, we're getting that sound in. When you were saying that when they backtrack, sometimes 7,500 yards or whatever, do you find that they're actually backtracking on the same exact trail that they were on?
Yes, sometimes, but sometimes, yes, it can be off by feet or yards, and not exactly. There actually is another one in here that does have another backtrack in it that I was going to talk about, because that one's actually got a huge horseshoe in it. I mean, the track itself was actually, there's nothing special about the track. I mean, none of these tracks are really, I mean, they're all different. It's hard, like even picking to do this, it was hard to pick which ones were our top five. They're all our top five.
Sure.
So I'm just trying.
I guess the reason why I asked that is because just in my experience in that, having tracked deer over the years, obviously just on my own, where you're tracking blood, and you kind of like, all right, I see blood. You kind of you're just going, right. You're not really looking at where those droplets of blood are going, like what direction they're hitting the leaf, which is obviously, you should do that.
Right.
But you're seeing blood, like, no, he's going this way. And then you get to a spot and maybe you'll find a big spot of blood where maybe he bedded down briefly. And then all of a sudden the blood doesn't go anywhere from there. And it's like, did he turn around on that same exact track, and come back? Should I have been looking at blood, the droplets, the way they're dropping in that? Sometimes you'll see blood off to the sides. Well, okay, maybe he sprayed a little bit on these bushes.
Or or just stopped there and stood around and maybe made a couple steps to, 5 steps to the right, 5 steps to the left, and then
Maybe
continued on.
clot it up a little bit, and
And they're just dropping a little bit of blood, kind of wherever they are. Like for a hunter to pick up a backtrack, I mean, you might get lucky and catch a backtrack, but I mean, it would be, the percentages are very low of a hunter being able to figure out a backtrack.
right.
I would say
Because
most
that's-
times I was on a
Go ahead,
backtrack
man.
most times I was on a backtrack on a blood trail. There was a few occasions that I figured it out, followed it back enough to find where it jogged off, but that's pretty rare because you've already went through there walking wise. But generally, you figure he backtracked, and then you start doing these wide circles until you hit the blood again. But track wise, when you're
Right.
on foot,
Right.
so that's a situation where a dog is priceless.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Real quick here, Scott. Go ahead.
Just
No,
think
go ahead.
Think about the time it took you to do that, Dan, to figure that all out. I mean, that's with dog there, that's a matter of minutes, let's say even an hour. Just throw an hour out there that it might take for the dog to figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where the handler comes in too.
Mhm.
And the dog's mind, is the dog thinking backtrack? I don't know. But in our minds, when we see all of a sudden, boom, there's a dead end with the dog behavior. Okay, why did we come to a dead end? It just didn't stop. Something had to have happened. That's our job. Our job there is to now help the dog figure that out.
And a lot of times on those, we'll be going in a straight line and the dog might jog off, we'll say to the left a little bit, come back down and go down it. Whenever a backtrack happens, Scott and I have done this many times, you remember that first little jog off. Like, why did he go off the line there? You come back up the backtrack. And actually, you asked that question earlier about backtracking up the same line or not.
Oh.
There was one I had went down the edge of a cornfield. When he got to the corner, I thought for sure it looked like a great spot to bed down, and it was a really nice spot. But he came back up 4 rows in the corn and confirmed it with two spots of blood in there, and came back up in that one little spot he had jogged off earlier. I made note. I'm like, we're getting up to that, and right then he turned and shot me right through this wide tree line fence row, and yeah, we end up finding that deer a little bit. But the dogs, he'll find that sometimes before the backtrack happens. I've actually questioned it.
He smells it here and here.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure.
And
He's got the 2 spots. He's like, all right, I'm going to keep going my direction then, but he went back to it. He's done that many times for me, where he'll go back. It's almost like I did smell it went off there. It's
Right.
kind of gives that behavior. Like, let's get back there. I think I was right back there. Not that he was wrong, just that the deer went and did their classic backtrack. And those backtracks can be, some of them are short, 20 yards. Some of them are 100. Had a mix of all of that for sure.
Sure.
I hit a wide trail last year, tracking one for my son, a doe he shot. We hit a split in the blood trail. The blood trail stopped and went 2 different ways, like a Y. And you're like, well, what the hell? You shot one deer, So we picked one and followed it, and it just came to an end. And we went back to the Y, went the other way, and then the deer wasn't very far. Because it was hit very well. So, it didn't go a long distance. But I did basically the exact same thing you're saying the dog does. I remember that. I marked that in my head, and I went the way I thought I should go. And that's not it. So I went back to that spot and followed it in.
And that's why Scott said the handler, a lot of people think they can grab their dog because it smells good and go do this, It's a combo. It's a combo deal. When Scott and I can be with the dog, actually when Scott, my son, and I can all go tracking, we'll miss nothing, right? That the dog tells us, and he tells us a lot. He's got a lot of good body language.
And Brian's kids got eagle eyes for blood. And
Crazy.
He's one of those kids that can see that pin drop 25 yards ahead of you, with the one I can't see in front of my face.
Yeah. So I'm just going to go through a couple quick questions here because I know we have a couple, but I want to just kind of get some generalizations out of the way here too. Some for those, I mean, there's probably a number of our followers and listeners in that are familiar with some of this stuff, but I think there's also a number that just have no experience and don't really understand. Now, I've had several guys from the Wisconsin Tracking Association and that on my show over the years, so I've become quite familiar. When we're talking about that interdigital gland, because this is what confuses a lot of guys too, is like, well, there's that gland sense all over the woods. How do they know? Each deer basically has a fingerprint with that gland. Correct. I mean, it's unique to that particular deer and only enhanced more because of the fact that it's wounded. Am I correct in that?
So well, while we're talking about that, so every time I bring Max to a shot site, Hunter goes, it went between those two trees right there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, fine. I don't do anything until Max tells me we're going between those two trees. I do not steer him in any direction. Anyways, he almost, I think Brian can even contest to this. He'll go down it knowing he's right. He'll turn around, he'll come back, he'll actually go behind it where the deer came in. I didn't really understand this till I actually talked to another veteran tracker, and he told me this. The dog is actually going to, he's figuring out identity before shot and after shot. And I was like, after I thought, I'm like, wow, Max does that more than because he always went down. He was right. He was always right. And he always comes back and he does his circle, comes all the way around, and then boom, goes.
Sure.
So it's weird. It's like I never. I mean, I'm considering, even though I'm we're 6.5 years into this. I mean, I'm still considered a rookie almost. I mean, there are guys in our tracking group that have been doing this for 40 years already.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just, I'm still the new guy, kind of. And I mean, but yeah, the things you learn on every track you go on is unbelievable.
I would imagine the biggest mistakes trackers make is forcing their dog to do something.
Yes,
into the dog.
100%. There's one in here, and I will be talking about a deer I shot that I was hunter and handler, and I made a huge mistake. Almost lost that deer because of myself. So that was.
Do you want to get into that one right away, Scott?
Yeah, we can do that one.
I gotta just bear with me here because I gotta remember which one that was.
It's actually the one with me. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So I shot this deer. Oh, and I can't remember the year now.
Nice bucks.
This has got to be 3 years ago. So anyways, we start this whole story. Finally get in the tree, and I'm in there before light and get all set up. And I mean, if shooting time was at 7 o'clock, at 6:59, all of a sudden, boom, there's this buck, and I can vaguely see horns. I have no idea how many points, what he's got on. I have no clue, because he's moving. This is right during rut. And there's nothing stopping him. Anyways, as you can see, there's nothing stopping him because I tried to stop him, and I released as I tried stopping him, and he didn't stop. He just kept trucking. So the arrow went way back. So anyways, yeah. Well, I seen the size of the deer's body. That was the first thing I seen, and my brain is going, this deer's got to have big horns. I mean, look at the size of his body. I mean, I go, Scott, this is the largest body deer I've ever seen in my life while on stand. But I could see horns, but I couldn't make out, points. I mean, I knew it had horns. I could see that, but I just couldn't make out points. And anyways, everything's going so fast. So, he's coming, and I'm like, trying to range where he's going to be. I'm like, okay, he's going to go right through there. That's 18 yards. And, so I got all dialed in, and he's going. I go, bleh, and I let the arrow go. Because 90% of the time they slam on the brakes immediately when you do that. This one never did, just kept going. Well, anyways, the arrow goes back, and I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me. So I'm literally watching this deer run away, and I'm calling my wife because I knew right where the arrow went. I go, get his food ready. I'm coming home to pick him up. Because I got land out in the western part of the state, so it's not like I just hunt down the road. I'm 3 hours away. But knowing I needed the dog, anyways, so I called her, told her I'm coming home. And that day I'm out in the woods with a buddy of mine at this time, and so I texted my buddy, told him what happened. I said I'm going home to get the dog. I said if you want to come down and go with me, or you can stay in a tree, and I'll be back to pick you up tonight. And I even said it's probably not a bad idea if you sit in a tree because I don't know if this deer's dead, alive. I'm assuming it's going to be alive for a long time because I exactly seen where the arrow went. So I said, you might get a chance where this thing comes out where you can, take him down. Anyways, so he stays in a tree. I go home. I'm on my way home, and my neighbor from Vernon calls me, and he shot one, and his deer is heading towards my deer. So my property is divided by a gravel road. I got 20 and 20, and he's on the other side of the gravel road. So, anyways, I go home. Coming home, I talking to him. I said, "Hey, I'm getting the dog. I'm coming back with the dog." I said, "We'll track if everything goes well. We'll track yours tonight, and if I feel it's getting too close to mine, we'll just call it off. We'll do them both in the morning." So, anyways, we go track my neighbor's deer, and I mean that's kind of a unique one too because it goes down to this valley, and then he says the deer goes left. Well, we get down there, sure. Max turns left, but he makes a quick right hand turn right away. And I'm like, okay, you guys look left. I said, I'll go with the dog. See what he's got. I mean, I'm always going to go with the dog first, and then later on, we can always come back to where you think the deer is. So, anyways, we go down this valley, and sure enough, about 300 yards in, I see a spot, or Max actually does, sniffs this branch, and sure enough, there's blood on it. So, anyways, down in those valleys, you don't have cell service. So I'm trying to call them and tell them I got blood. Well, there's no answer. So I'm like, hell with it. We're going to keep going. So, anyways, I kept going. About another 200 yards there, this thing is. Nice 17 pointer. So, anyways, we come back the next day. So we get my buddies, my neighbor's deer out of there. We come the next day, we start tracking mine. So this is where now I turn into hunter/handler. Dumbest thing I probably ever did because I almost lost my own deer because of it. Because I put the hunter in my brain and not the handler in my brain when we were doing that one. So we get going, and Max is spot on, as always, spot on. Boom, find a bed. There's blood in the bed. Yep, we're good. So this is a big ridge system, and my buddy's on one side of the ridge, and where I shot this deer, I'm kind of just as you get to the top, and my buddy is down, but he's like 400 yards down from me. Believe it or not, when you're hunting out there, if you have 20 acres in the hills, it feels like you're hunting 60. It's so big. So, anyways, yeah, he's down. He's about 400 yards. So, anyways, we're tracking this buck, and we're on the other side of the ridge from where my buddy was sitting. Well, we're about 300 yards in. All of a sudden, Max does a 90-degree turn, goes under this windfall, and sniffs. I go over there. I look. I don't see anything. So I come back and I bring him. And actually, by coincidence, at that 90, there happened to be a spot of blood there. So that's where I started kind of turning into hunter versus handler. It's okay. Well, why would there be a spot of blood here? The deer would be going straight. We've only had 7 drops of blood in this whole track. How coincidentally there's 1 drop of blood at the 90. So, anyways, I make him go straight, even though he was right. I'll get back to that. We go straight. We get about 100 yards in. All of a sudden, he's rolling around in the leaves. He's grabbing sticks and playing. I'm like, oh, excuse me. No, we're working. We're not playing. Well, as soon as I seen that, I knew 100% I was wrong. Brought him back to that spot of blood. I put him in a downstay, and we actually started looking for blood. About 5 minutes it takes, and then Max just starts whining and whining and whining. It's kind of my purpose for the downstay. I put him right in that scent, let him sit there. So, anyways, I released him. Sure enough, he goes right again. I asked my buddy, "Can you go under the windfall?" Yep, boom, there's blood there. I'm like, yeah, well, that's my bad. I'm colorblind anyway, so I'm the last person you want looking for blood for you. But I can see it if it's uh, in a bigger volume. But if there's a little speck, I can't see that. So, anyways, we get through that. Then what's in my head was that right hand turn brings him back over the ridge to where my buddy was sitting. And I'm like, that goes in the very open hardwoods. And I'm like, and in my brain, I'm like, there's no way that buck's going to go that way. There's no way. And that was the hunter in me, not the handler in me. Well, anyways, because I'm like, yeah, my buddy's sitting there. He's going to see this deer if it runs through there. And literally, that deer now is like literally only 100 yards from him. So, anyways, or, obviously maybe something happened after, most likely it happened after dark. He got out of that bed and it ended up, where we found him. Anyway, so we go up over this ridge, get back into the open hardwoods, cross a ATV trail, and there happens to be blood there. So then we keep going. This is wide open. This is the most open hardwoods of my property is right here. You can see forever. And anyways, we're going through this, and at this point we are doing almost a full horseshoe. And it all in all, it's that one ended up being like a 550-yard horseshoe. Well, we're going back to the road we walked up that morning. So I'm like, what is going on here? I'm like, this does not make sense. Why are you here, dog? I'm like thinking to myself, I'm like, you should have smelt this track when we were walking up, if this is where you're taking me. Well, we missed it by about 20 yards because we get up to the top of the hill, turn left to go to where my stand is. That deer came about 20 yards past there. So we were off by 20. Sure. If the wind would have been right, yes, he would have air scented. Well, the wind was probably not right. Because literally we walked 45 yards, 50 yards from this deer when we were walking up that road.
Sure.
So he takes me back around because at the top of the hill, there's a little food plot. So we go around that food plot, and this is a side of a hill that, it is so steep there. I would have never in 100 years, I wouldn't even go shed hunting in there because you can't stand on that hill. It's steep. Like it's a two-handed climbing if you're going. Anyways, so we start going through there. Well, now the dog, when Max can finally air scent the deer, it's undeniable. His nose goes up and he's basically almost walking on his hind legs. He's so high up in the air, sniffing the air. And then usually he comes back down and he starts going left and right. He's trying to find the strongest. He can smell it, but he wants to find the strongest odor of it. As soon as he got that, it was boom, and there he is. This buck is on the side of this hill. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I'm like, I almost caused me that deer just because I didn't put the handler hat on. I put the hunter hat on.
Right.
So, anyways, but like I said, all of these were going to lead into something else. Well, the horseshoe, we see that often, and it's usually not. It's not 100-yard horseshoe. They're usually 5, 6, 7, 800 yards, even more. And again, like we were talking earlier, you don't realize it till you actually look on a map and see where you were, and you're like, wow. Because like you said, you're just tracking.
Scott, real quick, do you because this question came up prior, do you are you guys using GPS as you walk?
Yes.
As well? So you're tracking, so you can analyze that after the fact then too, like
sure.
Where you actually
the GPS is nothing other than so we can get out of the woods. If
Sure.
something would happen, like we jump a deer and all of a sudden, boom, the leash comes out of your hand and the dog takes off.
Yeah.
That collar is his collar is GPS, so we can
Mhm.
still see him.
Right.
I mean, I've had a few hunters get nervous because I had GPS on. It's like, well, it is a safety thing. Besides GPS, that also has tone, vibrate, and shock. The shock on that one, we do have turned up quite a ways. That shock is 911 emergency, meaning for whatever reason he took off and he's heading towards a highway and we have to put him down.
Yeah.
You know, we have. I mean, trust me, I've tried it on my leg where it is now, and yeah, I don't want to try it on him, but it will put him down. You know, almost pretty much put me down.
I would imagine with going out and doing this for customers, you gotta almost have Onyx and run that and make sure that you're staying on the property.
Yep. Actually, my Garmin also has an Onyx chip in it. So I can pretty much see landowners just like on Onyx.
Well, will that also like map the actual path that you and the dog take?
Yep, it'll record mine and his.
Okay. Which I'm sure is beneficial to you, like for going back afterwards and just kind of breaking down that track job and seeing what that deer actually did. Because obviously one of the biggest things we want to get into here too is understanding like some of the behaviors of what a wounded deer does.
Right.
And obviously it's probably going to vary quite a bit, I would imagine. There's probably some similarities or maybe some constants there. I think a question came up earlier. I mean, that there's this, it was a question and I'd have to scroll back through. I apologize, but I'm going to go ahead and ask the question because I know where it was going. And that, how often are these deer going to water? I mean, it's been the liver, the gut shot thing. How often is that actually true that they go to water?
Yes and no.
Yeah, and Brian, feel free to jump in on that too.
Have I found them dead in water? Absolutely. Have I found them dead where they could have been in water? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So I don't see. I mean, like you go on social media and everybody's like, "Oh, they're 100% going to water." No, it's not 100%. It isn't. Right. I mean, I'm sure. Apparently there's a burning sensation. So that's their reason for going to water. It's burning. They're trying to cool it down. Right? What's that?
With a liver hit.
Yep. Or guts. Yep. Same. And yes, they do. But, it's not always. Like this deer.
It just makes the odds slightly higher that that's what they're doing. It just makes you think, well, I should probably look that way, but that doesn't make anything 100%.
Absolutely. It's a place to check, but is it a guarantee? No, it doesn't happen. I mean, there's been times where the deer had all the opportunity to go to water and it never did, never went in there. But obviously.
We talked earlier about different times of year too. I think during, if you shot one November 8th in Wisconsin, that deer's not going to care about the whatever fever it's getting or anything. You shoot that same deer October 8th, it may try to do something for that, but my son shot a deer this year in the liver and it had every opportunity to go to 2 different water sources and chose to stay on high ground.
And how far away did it go?
It bedded. That one was crazy. It bedded. So that was October 20th, right when the hormones are kicking in hard. And so he, just right at the peak of it. So he hit him straight liver, and actually one lung liver. And he went about 200 yards and laid down. We didn't know this, but 13 hours after the shot, when we went in, we actually bumped him. Dog started acting real weird. Scott and I could not. We're together. We couldn't quite figure it out. I said, let's just do a loop. While we were doing this loop, the dog caught the scent, got the scent again. Actually heard the thud of the deer fall over walking out in front of us. So he was just barely alive. But yeah, that 13 hours with a one lung liver on October 20th. That's September 20th. That deer's not alive 13 hours later.
Well,
So there's just a difference there on that wait time. Everyone always thought six. I've always heard, right? 6 for liver, 12 for gut. I agree with that up till about October 10th. Then after that, I don't know. Every week start adding on a little bit.
Yeah.
yeah. I
100%.
mean, I would and again, I think this goes. It's a deer by deer situation.
We see it in age. You
Yeah.
can see it in age classes.
Okay.
As they I never ask. I mean, I shouldn't say I never. I always ask, how big is it? I don't care, but I just want to know because that helps me figure out age, and
Mhm.
age is gonna help me decide when we're gonna go track it. Obviously, the older they are in age, the harder they are to kill. Really, plain and simple. And our biggest thing is we want that deer dead. We don't want to come up on a live deer.
Right.
Number one is obviously dog safety. We don't want that dog to get killed. So we want that deer dead when we get there. Now, is that always the case? Absolutely not. I mean, that's not the case all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of times, when we're saying 24 hours and we get there and we jump them, and trust me, we do plenty of that in the fall, 24 hours. Like, I'm actually, I'm glad that I get enough calls that it puts me on basically a 24-hour routine. If you call me on Monday morning, I can't get there till Tuesday morning because it puts me on 24 hours is now forcing everybody to just stay put till we get there.
Yeah.
And actually, I like the ones that actually go later in the day because those are actually older. Usually, your first one in the morning is the one you got to worry about because that one's only 24 hours. And
Yeah.
as the day is going on, those are getting older and older, and hopefully those deer are dead by the time you get there.
Sure.
Because we have had bucks fight us or try to fight us. I mean, I've never had a deer on my dog, but we've been charged many a times. And Brian's got a good story on being charged.
I had one. I knew we were getting close to the deer. We waited. That one we knew was going to be maybe close. I think it had been, I want to say 12 hours. I think it was 12-hour. He thought it was liver hit. I'd kind of lost the hunters. I don't know, about 200 yards in. They went one way to look for some blood, and because the deer had definitely done a couple of weird things, and and so we got to this spot, and yeah, the dog got off to my right a little bit, and I've got the lead, and all of a sudden, the dog's probably 8 yards to my right, and the deer's just gets up, red brush cattails, gets up about 5 yards from me, and just put his head down and just came at me like very direct, ears pinned back. Wasn't running at me or anything, but he was coming directly at me, and I had to get the dog lead. I didn't want him getting tangled with the deer, so I first got as tight as I could with the lead and got him tight because he's running right at the deer. So I'm like losing my tension on the dog all at the same time. And I just pushed the rack with my hand and turned and spun. And he actually made one little leap. And I've been yelling at him this whole time that he didn't really care. And he went about 30 yards and laid right under this buckthorn branch. And the hunters got up to me by that point. And I said, just give it some time. I have other tracks to get to. There's no point in us going over there right now. It's just going to be a mess. I said, you could probably, do whatever. But they waited. And I think they went in there like 2 hours later and it was laying right there dead.
Yeah.
But yeah, that
one's on the last surge of adrenaline there.
Yeah, I didn't. It was a little spooky, for sure. I was just more worried. I didn't think the deer was actually like. I figured if push came to shove, right? I've got some nice knives on. We're gonna be all right. But the dog, right? If he would have turned to the dog, like there was this freaky moment of that. And that's why you'll see in the pictures that orange vest Max is wearing, that's Kevlar.
Sure.
Just in case that. But yeah, we get into those spots where we've now learned how the dog starts to act when we're really close, and when we can't see very far, cattails, things like that, and we get that dog lead. I have it really short now, like to the point my shoulders are pretty sore at the end of the day if we've got a couple of those because he's
Oh, yeah.
pulling pretty hard, but I'm keeping him tight. It's a short lead.
Yeah, right.
So real quick, I just wanted to go back to this whole liver shot thing or whatever, because I had an experience 8 years ago. I had shot, and it was just a 3.5-year-old buck, and it was a liver shot, and the deer literally walked about 15 yards, maybe 20 yards, and bedded down immediately. Now, from my stand in that, I couldn't get another shot at him or anything. I just kind of held tight there. After about a half hour or so, he got up. Again, moved into some thick stuff where I couldn't go. I sat in my stand for several hours, and I got out. I knew clearly. I was filming and everything that where this was. This was a clean pass through right through the liver. The way he hunched up, the way he walked, the way he bedded, all these things, right? Came back hours later, well over 6 hours later, and started taking up track. Went to that last spot that he was bedded down, and then really couldn't find much for blood, and was going to just say, all right, I don't want to push it here into the evening here. And it was still legal shooting light and that, but it was getting close, right? It was getting closer to dark. And I'm like, all right, going to head back, and I'll just take this up in the morning, just give him the rest of the night. Walking out, he had crossed the path. There was no blood that I had noticed anyways, because he went a direction I didn't even realize. And there he was, bedded right on. They had just some bushes right there. Head up looking at me, and I was able to get a finishing shot in him, and that he jumped up, ran about 30 yards, and that was all she wrote. So it's like going back to that case by case situation there, that every deer doesn't do the exact same thing. I mean, for it to literally like get shot in the liver, go 20 yards and bed down comfortably, and just kind of, he's looking around, chill as could be, as if nothing ever happened. And after a certain while, he just kind of got up and moseyed up the ridge in that. And this was like November 1st or 2nd in that. So, it's just strange.
Well, I think sometimes it almost makes you wonder, because, like, even when we talk to hunters, we do our hunter interview, and we're asking for deer reaction, and
Right.
some of the reactions don't match the shot. Well, I just, at times I wonder if these bucks even know they're shot. It might take a little while. We even notice that too, because like
that's true.
sometimes
That's a good
the dog does struggle in the beginning. So at this point, is the deer not pumping out interdigital yet? So that's where, if he picks up the before and after of the deer, now he actually has the before he could possibly track before he finally hits the after.
That's a really good point.
And reading the deer is the most important part of it, right? Right after that shot is just, it's really hard, right? To you want to see what you want to see. It's hard to remember what you actually saw. I'm not calling everyone a liar, but I've shot deer, and I know I was kind of lying when I had to look back on it a while back and be like, "Oh, wait a minute, was that what it did?" But it is important to look at that, because that and the arrow are, the biggest thing Scott and I can go off of. And a lot of times someone can send us a picture of an arrow, tell us what the deer did, and we can tell them with 100% confidence that deer is alive. And it's not worth their time, our time, anyone's time, right? Now, those are few, right? Because there's a lot of them. It's like, well, we don't have enough of that info, right? Like, maybe they didn't have the arrow. We had to go off what they said. I mean, my dad in his mid 70s, he shot a lot of deer. Everything he thought he saw on a 6-year-old buck he shot this year. And again, there comes the age thing. It sounded liver and acted liver. Everything was liver. I think the reason it didn't act lung was he literally, with a 2-blade, it went in vertically, never touched a rib, never touched a bone, just double lunged and literally went between everything.
Sure.
Never got a bone. And he got to watch this thing through an open field for a while, and everything indicated liver. It was laying dead just inside the woods. But, he couldn't see that, obviously. And so we had to just treat it like a liver. But that deer, you would have thought 100%, everything he said, for sure liver. But it wasn't, right? But
Yeah.
you're better off erring on that side for anyone curious. If it's about to rain, that's not going to make your deer die quicker. So that's a lot of people like, oh, I got to go look before it rains. Actually, no, just call a dog, because the rain is not going to hurt the dog. Dryness hurts
That's
the
a
dog.
big misconception a lot of guys have, is that they freak out that the blood trail is going to get washed away. And quite honestly, it's been, and I don't want to overstep here what you guys are saying, but having talked with other guys, that dogs thrive better when there's some moisture in that, as opposed to it being super, super dry. It almost helps enhance that
Well, scent needs
their
moisture.
scent. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, scent needs moisture. So the more moisture, the better. The only thing a 3-inch gully washer in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh yes, that could definitely wash it away.
Sure.
But 2.5 inches overnight, I don't think so. And we've tracked many a deer the next day after a rain, and it's actually I don't mind it. I mean, the dog is usually spot on.
When it was really dry this last fall, we had those periods of that. We were starting tracks, literally before first light, in the dark a little bit, while you had that morning moisture, to help the dog out. It's going to be getting warm and all that, because the dog can still do it when it's dry. I've seen him do some really amazing ones in dryness. But it does make it a little slower, right? It's a slower track because he's just got a little less scent to work with every single step. So,
Can I go back just a second? I wanted to say something, but you guys were talking. Scott,
We'll let the beast talk.
on the interdigital gland and how they follow that.
Yep.
And it had me thinking, I think a lot of people don't understand that the interdigital gland is used a lot with fear. And when they get scared, they emit more scent.
Correct.
And if you think about like how Scott was saying, they follow one deer and they don't get off on other deer's scent, and there could be other scared deer. And if you think about how a bloodhound works, when it's following an individual human scent and goes right through a crowd of people to find that one person, he's following that person's scent. And a deer has individual scents too.
Yeah.
You think about like when a deer stomps its feet, when it's like it sees you and it stomps its feet. A lot of people think that's to make you move, and maybe that's part of it. But a big part of it is that they're stomping and putting out that scent. They're emitting that scent for other deer around them.
That's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, and a lot of hunters don't know that. They think that it's all about, trying to get you to move or something.
No, that's them leaving that scent,
Correct.
meaning that they sense there was some danger there.
Mm-hmm.
But even the dog, I think as they age and they get more experience, I'm sure there's other elements that he is also using. I mean, you got deer dander, you've got tarsal on bucks. I'm sure he figures all of that out as you start.
Sure.
As he's
starts adding that to it. Yeah,
I think he's just he's doing all the math.
Yeah.
And I believe there is more than just the interdigital that he is tracking.
Can I ask you one more question? For the people that are listening to this, how does it affect your track when that person goes out and tries to find that deer beforehand with a crowd of people? Takes his dad, his brother,
starting the grid search.
We talked about this last night a little bit. I mean, I was going to do a little do's and don'ts, and that's in my one of my don'ts is grid searching. You can always grid search after the dog. Now, after saying that, um, experienced dogs can. Max is pretty good at getting through them, and actually, we can even tell that it's been grid searched because you can see it in his behavior. You know, where he's solid, 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 then all of a sudden he's kind of scattered, and even you can tell he can still smell it, but he's just isn't directly on the line anymore. Um, but I think as he was aging and started doing more and more and more of these, they are easier now that he's older. When he was younger, it was definitely a problem. They were difficult to get through, and so yeah, that was kind of in my don'ts. You can always grid search after the dog. That'd be very helpful because really all you're doing is adding more time, and you're taking your percentages of recovery of that animal just because you grid searched.
So now, I'm assuming that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming that when these guys do that, the reason it's a problem is because they're taking that deer's scent and they're getting it on them and they're moving it.
Yes, because when you have you and four of your buddies are tracking a deer, where are you walking? Right
Yeah.
smack dab center of that track.
So that
Well,
deer scent's sticking to you, right?
so
And
now,
you're
it's getting transferred onto your boot, and then you're walking, and then everybody knows where last blood is. Well, what do? They start walking around. Everybody starts. They start doing their circles, and it gets all over. But I mean, that's just part of the game. We know it. I mean, we try to do our best to keep the grid searching to a minimum. I mean, I think people are starting to learn. If they haven't had a dog, they know somebody that has had one, and they have most likely learned something from that had the dog or what have you. So I think there's people are starting to learn that, and they are calling us sooner than later. So that is helping definitely. So it's been I would have to say yes, it's been less the last couple of years than when I was first got into this. And then there was a lot of grid search because I think wasn't as well known as it is today.
Yeah.
Well, and I think doing these types of shows and things like that, getting that education, like when you guys are going out to expos and that,
Yep.
educating hunters and getting this information out there is really important, because quite frankly, yeah, nobody would know otherwise. All of a sudden someone in your group was, well, maybe we should call a dog. Well, we probably should have called the dog in an hour and a half earlier,
Right.
before we went there
Before we got in trouble.
right, before we mucked it all up. So, and as we go on here, I mean, we're at an hour and 15 minutes in here. I'd like to get to a couple of these other tracks here. We went through that first one there. Let's talk about this one here, Scott, and then we'll jump to one Brian's right after this one.
So this one here, this was 800 and some odd yards. Perfect horseshoe. I mean, when I looked on the map when we were done, it was a perfect horseshoe. And this one also had a backtrack in it. We got through the whole track, no problem. All of a sudden, just like that, boom, dog stopped. And I'm like, okay, something had to have happened here. There's no way he's tracking this hard and all of a sudden, boom, nothing. And because there was three guys, and as we were going along, I was having them look for blood, or if my dog happened to find blood and show me, I would have a hunter stand there on that blood, and then we would just kind of leapfrog as we found more. Kind of helps for if the dog does get off. At least now you know where your last known blood was. It's easier than sitting here marking waypoints and then going back, as just having a human waypoint standing there until you tell them to move forward. So that's what I did that day. Anyways, so we get to this dead end, and there's actually blood at this dead end. There's blood right here. We're standing on it, and I, it took a while. I mean, it was like he kept going. I mean, we started doing these semicircles out ahead of us. Nothing, nothing, nothing. And I'm like, yeah, I'm like, the only thing I can think of is there is a backtrack here, and we got to find it. So I told those guys to stay there. And I said, you guys just keep looking for blood, and I'm going to take the dog, and we're going to actually walk this track backwards. And so, anyways, we started walking. Now, this backtrack wasn't exactly on the same line, it was off by about 8 yards, maybe even less, maybe 5 yards, and basically paralleled it for about 40 yards, and then it made a slight left turn, and then we actually ended up finding that deer where it was. But the horseshoe is real. I've seen it, and I've seen it many and many a times. And it's usually the horseshoes that are the big ones, like we just had, like that one, like that deer. Those are usually the deer we find dead. It's usually the shorter, like almost like J hook ones. Those ones we most generally don't find dead. Now, there's been occasions, and yes, you have, but for the most part, those short ones you don't. In my opinion, I think that buck is setting themselves up for a predator, and he's setting himself up with wind, elevation, sight. So he's waiting. He knows he's wounded. At this point, he knows he's wounded, and predators are going to start tracking him. So, in my opinion, that's what he's doing on the J hooks. And then when the predator is tracking him, that's when he makes his escape out of there. And those are usually not the deer we find dead, or J hooks.
So on those horseshoes, I would imagine that they're trying to get back to the familiar territory. They're trying to go back home, basically, circle back around home.
Yep.
And that's why they're ended up going to where they die, because they're going to where they're safe. You know what I mean? Because they're feeling like dying.
Right. And some of these are 800. Some of them are longer. I mean, some of them we can even call in miles, where it's like a mile and a half, mile and a quarter horseshoe, and literally.
How close to being back where you started?
Oh, there was one years ago. I was literally 40 yards, and I didn't realize it till I looked on my map, and I'm like, holy crap, we're 40 yards from that tree stand. We never found that deer dead. That was because in this case it was like a 600-yard horseshoe, but I think it was more like a 600-yard J hook, because it was really tight. Like he went 300 yards, turned and went 300 yards back, and it was basically just paralleled his same line. So it was more like a U instead of a horseshoe. It was a tight U, and because it made more sense to me that deer would turn and go into those cattails. I mean, that's my hunter brain going, not my tracking brain, that this deer would go into the cattails. He never went into all the opportunity to go into cattails, never went in there. Stayed in there was thicker, it was thick, but yet not horribly thick. I mean, you could easily see 60 yards in all directions. And that's where he hooked back and went literally right next to the stand, and it was those are all. I mean, all of these are different. I mean, every one of them. There's not one that's even close to one another. But yeah, the horseshoe is real. We see it many a times. I mean, I'm sure Brian, you've seen it many a times.
I got a question for you guys here from one of the followers here from Jimbo. Says, have you guys ever gave up on the track and the hunter still found the deer afterwards on their own? I'm assuming.
Yes.
Has that ever been a situation? Yeah.
Yes. This isn't a perfect science.
Sure.
I mean, for the most part, when mistakes are made, it's made by us, the handler. It's usually not the dogs. It's usually us. The mistake is made by us. So, I mean, if there's a tracker out there that says he's never left one dead in the woods, I'd probably have to say you're a liar, because it's going to happen. It's going to happen. It just, I mean, a lot of things can happen there too. I mean, scenting conditions. I mean, everything's got to be in the dog's favor. If it's not in the dog's favor, when it's super dry and hot, yeah, that's like Brian was saying. When we were doing tracks early in the morning, just trying to use as much dew as we possibly could use to go find these deer. Because as soon as that sun came up, that dew was gone, and the scent was a lot of the scent was gone. Like I'd rather let a track sit all day and get to the evening, and where you then you have thermals in the evening, which is now helping hold that scent down there. Yes, some of the scent is going away during the daytime, but I'm not worried about it.
It's kind of refreshing, repermeating.
Yeah, I'd rather have some of that scent, kind of dissipating, and then wait for that moisture to come and come down, because that moisture just helps the dog. Like, I mean, I can't tell you how many times on every single track that we're, when you go water the dog, that the very last thing you do is you put water on his nose. You just keep watering his nose, because as soon as his nose dries up, it's very hard for him. So we just keep watering his nose. Every time he drinks, you finish it off with a little water in your hand and back into his face. He doesn't like it, but it definitely helps, because they need that moisture, especially when it's warm, dry.
Yeah, it's grabbing all those scent molecules in that.
Yeah.
I mean, Dan, we talked about it before. We talked about it on a previous show. I don't know what it was, but I'm like, if you ever fart in the shower, man, like it just seems a little stronger for some reason.
It's the moisture.
What were you going to say there, Dan?
Jimbo Slice's question about finding the deer after the dogs have left. I've seen a scenario on several occasions where one lung deer that are hitting one lung don't die for 2 or 3 days, and sometimes they're found where you've already looked. They've gone back there and died.
Sometimes they just live.
You're still alive.
Yeah, Brian's got a perfect one to talk about.
Do I have that? Do I have that example?
You have
here?
that one.
All right. Refresh me here a little bit. Which one that one might be?
I don't know if I sent that pic, did I?
I think you did, because your bow is laying.
Yeah, it's going to be just a buck laying on the ground.
But there was a buck with the bow and arrow.
I did. Yeah, that one.
There we go.
That was the loneliest track of my life. I did it by myself. No dog, no other human. Got to my deer. It was a sad moment. My son shot this buck on September 30th this last year, about 1.5 inches to the right and low of where my shot is, right there. Shoots 40 pounds. Nice 125 grain Magnus Stinger, nice 2-blade head. It broke off. So that's a nice big head, and then there was 3 inches of there was blood 3 inches on the shaft of the arrow, and it broke off right where the thread is of the broadhead. I wish I had those pictures, but so we knew based off my son saying we didn't have the arrow yet. It carried the arrow for a while. Scott said, let's go just run the dog on it. And we took it a while. I mean, we took it 300 yards or so, and we knew, right, that this had only poked one lung. Scott and I have been through enough tracks to know that this deer was not going to die unless we could somehow stay on it and push it. We didn't have the real estate to do that, number one. So we said, we'll just leave him be. So then November 9th, he came by. I shot him on the same side my son shot him on. And so I didn't, we figured he had poked that lung. We didn't know for sure what it is.
In this photo here, obviously we can see there where your shot was. Was his shot visible?
I could not see where his
I'm just
his
trying to
entry
zoom in on
was
it a little bit.
without moving. No, you can't see it without moving the hair around. But it is about an
Okay.
inch. It's about an inch and a half to the right and down from right where that is. And it's right above the ball. So it didn't quite get the ball right, just right above that little part. It was lodged in there, stuck right in there.
Okay.
I couldn't see that. I knew it was a buck. I knew the buck. And so I shoot, and the arrow, actually, my arrow lodged in the opposite shoulder, right? From there, it was slightly quartered.
Quartering
Lodged
away.
there, broke off. Yeah, broke off mine. So the arrow started pulling out. And to me, it didn't look like I got much penetration. And I'm like, did I really just do what the kid did? Like, did I really just do the same thing? And so yeah, I heard him cough like 15 minutes later, and we waited just a little while. And Scott and I said, like, he's either dead or he ain't. Like, I mean, if it is another one lung deal, So I think I ended up waiting like 45 minutes or so, and then yeah, I did the lonely. I haven't walked up on a deer alone in a really, really long time. I mean, even if I'm not using the dog, I blood trail with my kid, my brother, my
Sure.
dad, someone. And this one was kind of funny to walk up to like this. So when gutting this deer out, I was really careful. That near side lung was about half the size that it normally was. It looked more like a cauliflower. It was kind of shriveled up, and like where all the shrivel was, it was all like real black in there, and the rest was just kind of white, like an opaque white color. Um, I nicked the heart, just sliced the edge of the heart, and then right through the opposite lung. So that deer, this is another good example of what happens on November 9th, in that time frame.
Mhm.
That deer went about 80 yards, pulled the arrow out with its teeth, and then walked 10 yards, laid down. Um, there's another pic that I had where you can see, it had definitely laid down. I heard the coughing there. I could see in the grass where it had coughed. And so this deer took over 15, 20, 30 minutes to expire. And it started with one lung, got hit in the heart and the other lung, and still took that long. Unless you see it drop, there's no rush, right? They don't die. Like, they're not going to come back alive, right? So, I mean, I easily could have bumped him even if I would have got down right away. I would have bumped him, and then who knows, right? Then it would have been a max deal for sure, because then he's just going to go on a straight line till he dies.
So you're saying there's no zombie bucks?
No, I haven't encountered one yet.
I don't know if I believe you there, buddy.
This is a perfect example that these deer will live on one lung.
Yeah.
Because we get that call a lot. I got one lung. I got one lung. Honestly, it's going to take one lung and something else. You need to hit something else with that in order. They're going to live. We've been on many, and actually, I think there's been one deer we have found dead that has been one lung and nothing else. But otherwise, the one lungs we just never find. For obvious reasons.
If you get a one lung and you find it dead, it's usually lung, like a high hit, because they got a lot more vessels up in the front.
Yes, yep, absolutely.
Yeah, less than towards the back. Yeah.
I actually tracked a doe a few years back, double lung, 100% double lung. I seen it. I was there when you gutted it, pulled the lungs out. Arrow went through both lungs, but it went through way in the back. Mm-hmm. This deer was alive. This deer was still alive 6 hours later.
Incredible.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it.
That's just bananas. I mean, really. I know, Scott, you and I, we were talking last night on the phone, kind of discussing some of the things we wanted to cover here tonight. And I was telling you the story about a buck from like maybe 6 years ago, a 9-pointer that I had shot, and I was filming the hunt too, which in this hunt, the buck was quartering away, and as I shot, he ended up quartering even further. took off, and I'm reviewing the footage from the tree stand. In fact, to the point where every time I'd watch it, I'm like, man, this shot just keeps getting worse and worse. I'm taking my phone and zooming in on the little LCD screen on my camera, and so I can zoom in better. And my heart's getting heavier and heavier every time I watch the video. I'm like, at first I thought it, was this and that. Well, and actually, I called a mutual friend of you guys in Wisconsin Deer Tracking Services and stuff, and that was Jamie Dom, to get his thoughts and stuff. And I think I might have even sent him a clip of the video. Because at first, at one point, I thought I hit it in the hindquarter. And he's like, well, if you hit it in the hindquarter and, if you caught that femoral artery, then you got to push that deer, pump that blood out of him, keep him running until he bleeds out. But the more we watched it, and then I hadn't even gone down to the shot site yet. So I went down, and I'm like, there's gut matter here. And I'm like, I'm getting out of here. Neighbor guy, one of the Jason properties, who I had just met, who moved up in the area just a few years prior, said, hey, gave me his number. He goes, if you ever need help tracking a dog, he's like, I got a purebred bloodhound. He doesn't do it on a regular basis, but he's been successful. So I thought, well, what the heck? I go over there. I said, and this was on a Sunday. I said, are you available Monday morning? I'm like, I'm going to let this deer sit 24 hours. Do you want to come bring Dozer out with you? And that he goes, yeah, that'd be great. Let's do it. Meet up at 7 a.m. and we'll take up the track. Well, my buddy was hunting the same property, and I was quite confident that the direction the deer took off running, he was going to run off the property if he was going to continue in a straight line. Well, I ended up kind of making not quite a J hook, more of an L shape. But I had gotten permission from this landowner. He's like, yeah, no problem. Come on in. So my buddy was hunting all day. He came out. I'm back at the bunkhouse, and he goes, hey, I'm walking out on that south trail past the swamp, and there's blood going across the trail right there. I'm like, are you serious? Take me to where this blood is. So we go there, and I'm like, sure enough, I'm like, man, my buck could be right down there at the bottom of the swamp right now. But I said, I'm going to err on the side of caution. I'm like, I already got the dog lined up for tomorrow. Like, I don't care. Like, I want to recover this deer. I don't want to take the chance of bumping this buck, because I know I hit guts for sure, because there's gut matter there. And I didn't even want to mess up that entire area. You know what I mean? I didn't want to go much further. Maybe I went 15 yards beyond that, and nothing looked promising to me. But a gut shot deer is going to be a dead deer, as we all know. But I'm going to err on the side of caution. Next day I said, so I got some new developing news here. I said, my buddy found blood where this buck, where we're assuming it's my buck, obviously, went off of my property, went onto another property, and then crossed back onto. It's kind of a wonky shaped property, with a lot of little ins and outs in that of what's our lease and what's not. And I said, do you want to just go to that spot? And he goes, yeah, let's start up right there instead of going all the way back. He's like, we can always go back. And we started up on this track, and I'm laying back, and I'm marking last blood while him and the dog are going. And at one point, and mind you, the dog at this time also had a double ear infection. And he goes, I'm just going to tell you this up front. Dozer's got this double ear infection. I don't know how much that's going to mess with his senses. He's shaking his head a lot, and he's on antibiotics, blah, blah, blah. Well, we're on this track for quite a while, and I'm seeing blood doing that Y thing that we had talked about earlier, where the dog's going this way, but I'm seeing blood going to the right, where I'm not really seeing it going to the left, but the dog is insistent on the left. He comes back with the dog because we're kind of communicating on the phone, and I said, look, I got blood going this way, so we're going that way, and the dog's following that for a while. Long story short, because it's already been long, we ended up kind of giving up after X amount of hours, and just because this dog looked miserable with this double ear infection. You know how those bloodhounds are, big floppy ears and that, and he's shaking his head. I'm like, we're kind of striking out, and I said, let's call it. I'm going to do a little bit more looking in that. I ended up going home. I was home for an entire day, and it was just eating me up inside. I'm like, I know this deer is dead somewhere. So I went back up on Wednesday. We tracked on Monday. I was home Tuesday. I went back up on Wednesday. Shot the deer on Sunday, and put hip waders on and waded through this entire swamp. Just kind of grid searched the entire swamp, and couldn't find anything. I decided I'm gonna climb up to the top of this ridge. It's like a big kidney bean shaped bowl. I'm gonna go up top and just look down one more time. And on the far end, I climb up the ridge to throw my waders down and start walking. And there's my buck, dead, kind of wedged in between two small trees where he had slid, like he had ran the entire time until he died and kind of slid. And then just kind of, he wasn't stuck, but in there, like it's not like he couldn't have got himself out between these small trees, but his antlers were kind of lodged in there. The exact path that dog was on before we pulled him off, because the blood was telling us something else. And we second guessed the dog, and that deer was dead before I ever got out of my stand that morning. And granted, I was in there for quite a while messaging Jamie and trying to get all the information I could, but that deer was dead. It ended up going in guts, going through liver, and then single lung. So again, that was one of those situations where it wasn't just single lung. There was other things to go along with it. This deer ran good 800 yards, but he died right there in that spot. And by this time now the coyotes had gotten to his back end and stuff or whatever. But still, I was like elated. It was like I came up to the ridge and the sun was just kind of breaking through the trees, and it just kind of shined right down on his rack, kind of lighting it up almost like a little beacon. And then I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. So I immediately called my neighbor up, and I said, because he knew I was coming back up and he had a doctor's appointment out of town. He's like, otherwise I'd bring the dog back out again. He's like, he's doing better. And I said, the dog was 100% right. And he was like, damn it. He's like, we shouldn't have we should have trusted the dog. And we didn't. And so just thought I'd share that story because that's my only experience with anything like that. And it relates obviously to trusting the dog.
Yeah. We
goes back to your hunt.
Yeah. We have actually learned that, cause you hear it while you're out there, hunters are like, well, it went right here and the dog goes left. It's like, well, I always tell them we can always come back and go right. Cause usually the dog is not wrong his first time. Like I've even told Brian that, like if you're stuck, and usually the dog is not wrong his first time through, he's not wrong. So, we just go with the dog and whatever. And worse, at the end, we can always go right and look right, but pretty much, we go where the dog goes. Obviously, Brian and I, we got to read him so that any mistakes that could happen, that we can catch the mistakes. Max is at the age now, he does correct himself pretty quick and easy. Used to be we needed to help correct, but actually now Max does it pretty good himself because his reads are pretty undeniable. I mean, you can't really miss them. They're hard to miss. But I've learned, we've learned a lot as the years go on. You learn more and more. We learn more about his reads just this last spring because Brian and Max got tested to be in our network. And even I learned something about my dog that I never seen before. Like when he is physically on the line, I noticed a body drop and it's slight, maybe an inch and a half. But when he gets on the line and he's right, his body just lowers just that inch and a half. And I never seen that till that day, when we were doing that. And so you're always learning something.
I'll pull up another quick question here for you guys and see if you have any thoughts on it. Would a heavily wounded buck go uphill after getting bumped?
Absolutely.
Yep, all the time. I had him cross, like a steep railroad. where you got really steep railroad crossing.
Yeah, sure.
I had one, like, you wouldn't dream a healthy deer would, choose to go over it. This buck, you did say zombie deer earlier. This one actually has to be a zombie deer. Got a picture of it while we were tracking it. I mean, it was well after, even if it would have been liver, but the picture is clearly double lunged.
Oh.
I still don't know what the deal is, but we got pictures of the deer in front of us while we were tracking it. And we got on the fresh blood too. And I'm like, this isn't dried up anymore. And that deer never died. They had pictures of it all the way into like past gun season and everything. Now, part of that, I do always question broadheads. I sometimes wonder if a really, really dull broadhead, and again, that was back of the lungs too, right? Maybe it's just clipped a little corner or something. But that deer was a zombie. I have no clue how that deer was still going. But that deer, it was definitely wounded, chose to go up the steepest thing you could imagine. And, had an option, a river, stay on the bottom, had all sorts of options and chose to take this really, really steep route. And we see it a lot. Like Scott said right away, absolutely. I said, definitely. They do go uphill all the time.
And like, everybody says, well, they die over here, they die over here, they die over here. Well, deer don't have a graveyard.
No.
There's no graveyard. I mean, coincidentally, you had 3 deer die over there. I mean, that's coincidence. That's all. They don't have a destination to die. They know they're wounded, and they know they're just trying to get away from whatever just hurt them.
I would
What
say I
about-
disagree
Go
to
ahead.
some degree, and I agree with what you're saying based on your experience with dogs and stuff. But where I disagree is if they live for a week or two. I tend to find them in like the best bedding areas, like they go back to their safe zone.
Well,
But
absolutely.
I think when they're wounded mortally, then you're just going to find them in random spots. I've
Yes.
actually found them in people's lawns. It's
Yeah.
I mean, we track many tracks in subdivisions.
Mhm.
I mean, we're in subdivisions, many, many, many. Like you're knocking
Really?
on. Oh yeah.
That's you had kind of mentioned on your buck a little bit just a minute ago about how it went off your property and came back. And I was going to bring up, for anyone listening and you hunt private land, tomorrow would probably be a good day, and I wouldn't wait much longer. Get the contact info of all your neighboring properties, at least one neighboring property, depending on how you're laid out. If you're in a subdivision like this, we understand you probably don't want to go door to door right now and start saying you're going to hunt and da da da, because I get it. You might lose the property because some neighbor starts complaining about something or whatever, right? And then the people pull you out. So I get some of those, but you hunt rural farmland, whatever, get to know them. I mean, Scott and I were on a track. We were on a track together a couple of years ago on an amazing property. And the guy wasn't sure about everything, just wanted us to kind of be a second look. The dog took us right to this property line, and he could not get permission. And he had had this property for ages. The neighbor had been there for ages, and it was just one of those where it was like, well, we can't go. We don't trust that. So we're not going to keep going with the dog, and just take care of that now, right? You don't want to be calling someone in the last minute and trying to get permission and this and that. So I've got 3 different properties, 40 to 80 acres in size. So I've got plenty of neighbors. I have everyone's phone number. We talk about it ahead of time, how it goes, this and that. I tell them now, right? I don't need a bunch of people walking all over the land. So comes to our land, the dog will do it because that's going to be a straight line from where the deer entered to where the deer's dead. So that's another thing for folks if you're talking to your neighbors, because we deal with this a lot where the neighbor may not want the hunter and us and the dog on the property. They don't like the idea of a dog going in there. They would rather just someone go track it. An education point there is we're not going all over the place. We're going to go where the deer went.
Right.
And that's it. We're going to be on that one line. So get, and where you have control of things, do as much as you can. Get their info ahead of time. See if you can work out a deal, whatever that is, and get that done, because that is key. Because like Scott said, yeah, we have to when the dog's really tracking and he's on a good track. We hate having to stop. He hates stopping so bad. Like Scott said, we have to tie him off to a tree. So
Yeah.
we can't physically hold him back for more than a few minutes. He's knocked me off my feet. I'm 225 pounds. Knocks me off my feet, no problem if you're not paying attention right.
Yeah. I mean, and to your point there, I think I think what you're trying to get at is don't be calling out a dog to come track when that deer was headed maybe off your property, or there's a good chance it's going to the neighbor's property, and you don't already have that permission lined up. Don't waste these guys' time. Don't waste whoever you're calling's time to make the trek out there for them to get 150 yards into this track and like, oh, it's going out the property. Well, hang on a second. Now I got to try to make a few calls to see. I don't even know who this neighbor is or get that information.
Yeah, I mean,
don't waste their time. They could be out helping other guys. You got to get your ducks in a row before you make these calls to guys like this. Don't waste their time. It's time.
And that's 100% what happens is that we're sitting there waiting.
Yeah.
Well, if it's November the 2nd, we just don't have this track to do today.
You could have 6 other ones lined up, right?
We got 6 other ones we have to get to today. So Brian and I are putting a minute minimum that we're going to sit there and wait for you to get this permission. If you don't get it within this 15 minutes, we're gone. We got to go.
Right.
I can't be wasting all of this time waiting for permission.
And it's not just the wasted time. Like I said, that dog does not want to stop, especially in a lot of
he's all wound up.
Now he's trying to pull that tree over. So now we're knocking out more of his energy too. And trust me, that dog, I had to lift him into my truck, couldn't even jump into it. And when he woke up at the next track, I'm like, there's no way, right? Like this was track 6 on a day, and it was a lot of long garbage ones, and no, he's gonna go. He'll go till he dies. I mean, he knows he has this short window of fun, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I hate when we're sitting there and kind of like wasted energy, right? Like we're not making any progress. We're standing still. We're doing nothing, And I yelled at a hunter once that grid searched without telling us, and kind of one of those deals where it was like, just be honest with us. Like, get the stuff ahead of time. Don't trust whatever. I mean, I got to a public land one, and where the guy was sitting, he was on public land. But where he had me start tracking at impact, I was standing on private. And I'm like, wait a minute. And so I couldn't even start that track until he got permission.
Yeah. Let me pull this one up here, Brian, while I have you here, because I believe this is, I don't know if this is the one that you're talking about, but I have it labeled as Hunter did wrong here. And this will probably ring a bell for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is this that one or?
Yeah. So he was a new hunter. Self-taught new hunter, really neat guy, hunting public land. Now this public land, people will probably be able to narrow it down to a couple properties here, has horse trails through it, as well as a lot of hikers and runners. Yep. And so we talked earlier about, someone walks through, hunters walk through the track and they carry this, they carry it ever. So he tells me about it and how he didn't think the deer went out the route he was walking out, and he inadvertently came across the blood trail and then thought, oh, maybe I'll just follow it to the top of this ridge. Follows it to the top of that ridge and jumps the buck. And it runs right down one of these trails.
Like one of the equestrian or horse trails there?
Horse and pedestrian. So he marked some blood with toilet paper. And so where he had jumped it was about 200 yards from his stand. And it was only like an hour after. And so I thought this deer's going to go a long way. And it's high ground, all mature pine forest. So the bed is just pine needles and it's been nothing but dry. So we started at that bed where he jumped him, and the dog took me right on a line, right down his, where he had marked this blood, and he said it kind of dies off here. The dog got to there and he took me on this straight line, another, I think it was 120 yards. And in the middle of this open pine, there was just like some 2 foot tall, like weeds in a spot that was maybe 10 by 20 yards. And there was a bloody bed in there. So I knew we were right there. He was having a hard time figuring out where to get out of that. When he took me kind of the wrong way first, came back, but he never sold me on it. But he just kind of kept like going this one way, and I was getting a little confused. I later realized we were probably picking up the scent of the deer that a horse or a person had taken that direction. Anyway, he finally came back to that spot and got me out. And then I did confirm like some, where I could tell a deer had run and he was really on this track at this point. Now it's crossing one of those trails and now we're good. He's on it and everything's fine. We go another like 80 yards and then it gets to another trail and now he wants to go up and down the trail. And I can't tell it's so dry. He's telling me he's right, but I'm also having to question, is this a horse or a person dragging this around this way or
Yeah.
him? And I had to read everything. And Scott talked about the getting lower to the ground. There's another one he does where he'll slide like his rear legs like off the track and kind of go like on an angle as he's going. And I kind of noticed that and I went with that one and he really started digging. And at this point, like I said, it was taking a while to piece through each of these things. I mean, it was a lot of different things to get through. The deer I was confident the deer had went down the trail 2 different times, like got right on it and went with it. And then it had crossed the trail 5 times at least one of these trails as we're going. We're like 700 yards in right now, and I'm just kind of getting to the point like now I'm getting really excited about it because I can't believe we've advanced it. The hunter is looking and thinking like this is taking a while. Like I could tell he wanted to be done. We get to this spot, Max got even more intense, lower to the ground. We get down in this nasty ravine. It's right beyond where that deer is laying in the picture and it's deep and it's thick in there and everything. And the hunter's having a hard time getting in there, and the dog stops pulling. And he could tell I wasn't having to pull him back anymore. And I knew what it meant. The dog's like 5 steps in front of me, standing on the deer, and I can barely see it. And so I take a few more steps, and the hunter's kind of like above me, and he goes, "Well, I mean, you've given your all. Do you want to just call it?" And I said, "We could do that, or we could drag this buck out." Dog's standing on your deer. And he's like, "You're kidding me." I'm like, "Nope." I go, as soon as he started coming to this thick stuff, I said, "I hope it's dead right inside here." And it was, 10 yards into there like that. But that hunter had no control. He bumped it, right? I mean, that was a mistake going too early. He learned that lesson. After that, all the other odd things that happened in the track, completely out of his control, right?
Sure.
And without a dog, there's some of those tracks, right? Yeah, you'd have found that without a dog. That one, that one would never ever have been found. It would have been like that other rack in that picture. It would have just been a dead head found along the way.
Yeah.
Can I bring up stigmas real quick? So you get a lot of guys that tell me that the public land guys that follow us tell me that they won't call a dog tracker because they're worried about them snaking their spots. Like their good spot where they kill all their bucks.
Dan, I mean, of all the spots I've been in,
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I mean, yeah, are there some great spots? Absolutely. And public spots? Absolutely. No, I mean, that's not happening. We're not, neither one of us are going to hunt there, and neither one of us are going to give out that info.
Well, I know that because there's a reason why I call you, because I know
Right.
you and I know who you are.
Right.
I can vouch for that.
And
I tell every public hunter, right, on the phone before I drive out there and everything. Um, you know, I I will share nothing about where I was. If someone asks, I I don't even like to give out the county. It's not my deer, you know what I mean? Like, I don't even like giving the county. It's just Southeast Wisconsin. That's where that one was shot.
I mean, you go track a deer and you go find you're out in the woods and you're at this awesome hunting spot. 3 days later, I'm going to have no idea on my GPS where that was. I mean, you open up my GPS, it's there's thousands and thousands of waypoints on there from from tracks from 6.5 years. We've marked. I mean, Brian. I told Brian, as soon as you get to the truck, you mark the truck. That's your number one thing you mark is you mark your truck, because there's a good chance you're going to be coming out of the woods without a hunter. So you got to mark. You got to be able to get your self out of here. So we're always marking the truck. Well, anyways, I'm still using my GPS. If happen if someone's hollers blood, I'll mark it right away. That way if we have to come back and do a restart, we have a spot to go to. We don't have to go all the way back to start over. Basically, you go back to last known sign, or behavior. If I'm very confident that his behavior was good here, but it wasn't good over here. So yes, you're constantly throwing waypoints out. Yeah, and
I would assume that like I said, I really trust you. And there's other people out there that you don't know about, but I would assume almost everybody that tracks dogs and is taking their November evening to go track your deer is more in the passion of tracking than he is in hunting.
oh,
Because
absolutely.
you would be out in a tree stand rather than tracking your deer for like a $50 or $100 tip or whatever you're getting, than uh, than tracking your deer. He's doing that for passion. You know what I mean? Because that's what he loves to do. So I don't think you really have to worry about those guys. You
Yeah,
worry more about going to your neighbor or something and saying, "Hey, you want to come help me track this deer?" He's the guy that's probably going to snake you. I don't think a dog guy is going to do that.
yeah. I mean, we're
Yeah,
already.
Dan, it's just like your small group that you need help getting one out of the woods, right? That's a small group of people that can go into a kill area.
Sure
It's
is.
a really tight group. So yeah, no, and the other thing, like for Scott and I, we both have private land to hunt. And honestly, as much time as we spend tracking, and I got dogs that I go bird hunting with all the time. Um, I, I don't currently have time to go pound the public right now like I used to.
Yeah, me
Um,
neither.
and so, yeah, you can show me the spot all you want. I don't know when I have the time to do it. But yeah, no, if I was a hunter worried about that, I would definitely not be worried about the dog guys. Because to your point, Dan, it's not something that like Scott doesn't just do this, with Max and whatnot, September through December, right? There's a lot of work that goes into this. And so you put in all that work, you do have that short window. I mean,
Well,
we're lucky that we're pretty busy September through November, and December as well. Actually, it's been getting busier, but that's still short. It's still a short window of time, and la- sometimes we're sometimes we're on a bunch of live deer tracks too, and that is what it is as well. Not everyone's lucky and has dead deer Mondays like I did last year. Scott would go track all day Sunday and chase a bunch of live deer around, and I'd go find like two within 30 minutes on a Monday morning. Um, when, yeah, that happens a lot.
I think early season. I think you had more fines with Max than I did.
Yeah,
I
I've
think
just
you were.
been,
I think you were
yeah,
like nine. I think you're like 9 for 11, like early in the season, and it's like, oh, what the, you know, I'm sitting here.
Scott one day had 4 live deer he jumped. I was like,
I'm the one that's putting miles on in a day, and you're done in 10 minutes.
I want to just quick spin off of what Dan was saying. I think this is another misconception too. So let's say somebody's got private land, for example, right? They have a lease or they own a piece with some other guys. Maybe it's like 3-4 guys hunting on there. And man, I don't know if I should bring a dog in, traipsing all over this. Let's say it's an 80-acre piece or whatever. I'm gonna blow this whole piece up, because a dog's been in here now. Like, what would you have to say about that? I mean, obviously, in my opinion, you got to do what you got to do to recover the deer, right? I mean, that should be your utmost priority. But do you guys have any thoughts on that?
Well,
I kind of touched on it earlier that, for the most part, the dog's going to go where the deer went and rarely anywhere else. Sometimes we get off a little bit, but I would say, if he wants to recover that deer with the least amount of intrusion, the dog's better than no dog.
sure.
Because it's going to make a lot less mistakes as a human. And it is to go there. The other thing is, I can attest to this. We've tracked on my property. My cameras really don't show a difference after that happens.
well,
That September 30th one, that's early. We had 2 other bucks on camera, right in 2 cameras, right where we had tracked through in daylight the next morning and evening. Should have been sitting, but that's a whole other deal. But yeah, they don't, and I think part of that depends where you are. I'm farm country. I'm right near Dan, right? Jefferson County and that region. There's dogs running loose all the time. If you don't run more cameras, if you're not catching them, I mean, there are dogs going around all the time. There's enough human scent, right? There's spots where if you go through and they get some human scent, it's probably not the greatest thing. But you just go through quick with a dog like that, I've noticed on my cameras, nothing.
and honestly, I believe, and this is just my beliefs, you're making your presence known.
Yeah.
You're not sneaking around. Those deer hear you long before you get there. And in my opinion, they're just making their circle around you, and they're coming right back around. They're not afraid. I mean, everybody thinks that, well, you can't run a dog on my property. All the deer are going to be gone. No, those deer live with coyotes year round. If that was the case, they'd never be on anybody's property, because they would if they're trying to stay away from every coyote, that's impossible. They know this dog is domesticated. They're not afraid of this dog by no means. I mean, a coyote is way worse than this dog. So I feel that when we go in there,
and you feel like they can differentiate between a domesticated and a coyote.
Yes, because we're along with that dog.
Okay.
And I feel that we are making our presence known. And I mean, could that 180, the 185 move out? I don't know. Yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, Dan knows more about deer, big buck behavior, when they're not wounded than I do. I don't know. I have my thoughts on it. I still don't think it's, because put it this way, this deer's been shot. If you don't go in there with a dog to go look for it, what are you going to do? I'm sure you could get a drone. Okay, let's say you don't find it with a drone. Now what are you going to do? Well, you're probably going to call your buddies, or you're going to go in there.
Yeah, you're going to grid search it.
You and all your buddies is way worse than 2 guys going in there with a dog. Like Brian said, we are on a straight line, point A to point B, and then find the animal, and boom, we're back out on that same line. 90% of the time, when we turn around to go back to the truck, Max is taking us right back down the line. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of times that's how we end up. Besides GPS, Max just Max knows the gig. He knows how to get out of. Believe it or not, they know how to get out of the woods better than we do.
Sure.
I mean, there's been times where he just started walking, I walk with him. Well, there's the truck. It's like, oh, wow, you're way smarter than I am.
Dan, do you
The
have any
truth of
thoughts?
the truth of the matter is, with the way a dog tracks a deer is with scent. So he
Correct.
goes straight to the line to the deer. The way people track a deer is they do it with eyesight. So they scan everything. So they go
Yes.
everywhere. If they lose
Yes.
blood, can't see blood, they're going to go try to see the deer or find blood through eyesight. So they're going to cover everything. The dog is going to go straight to the deer. So a dog has a lot less impact. And to me, I mean, you can bump deer all over the woods. It doesn't really make an impact. Where it damages it is when you bump them near their bedding where they feel safe. When you go someplace where they don't want you to be, that does damage. But you're going to have more bedding areas. You just go to the next one. I mean, the deer bounce around and they'll come back a month later or 30 days later to the one that you went through. But it is going to have minimal impact. I mean, and if
Sure.
you're on public land, I mean, people go through those spots all the time. You never even know when somebody goes through, and people are out there pheasant hunting with dogs and rabbit hunting with dogs, and they get in those areas too.
Yep. Good point. All right. We are just over the 2-hour mark here. Scott, I'd like, which one? I'm going to go through one more here with you, one more track before we wrap this up here. Is there one that you sent me here that you want? Do you want to do the bear?
Why don't you do the bear?
All right, let's pull that up here real quick. All right, Scott, give us the story.
This is my wife's bear.
This is interesting here because I think a lot of people might not realize that a dog that's tracking interdigital gland on deer is also quite capable of tracking a bear. Is that right?
Correct. Even though they don't have an interdigital gland that I know of. But once these deer are seasoned, our dogs are seasoned on deer, the transition to bear is actually relatively easy. Max was a little goofy in the beginning. Even now, like this is my wife's bear. She shot it 2 years ago. Believe it or not, the bears we do track, a lot of the bears we do track are basically double lung, fatal. The deer are going to die, but bears have a tendency not to bleed. And that's how, we get called in to go track bears. Anyways, this happens to be my wife's bear. Hers was perfect shot, double lungs. It still went 180 yards. Well, where this bear is dead right here, yes, it is open because the bear did run till it died. But the stuff we had to get through from the stand to there, I mean, it was so thick. Like I had Max choked up to 3 feet on leash just because, it's so thick that you can't hardly see anything. And I didn't want a bear jumping out on the dog. So I wanted to make sure the dog was right next to me the whole time. But yeah, I mean, what they do, bears just stink. And as soon as your dog, they do figure it out. I mean, it's like a puzzle to them again. Once you get him on that track to track a bear, he'll do it. Max will do it. He doesn't like to do it. He does it. My wife's bear is actually the first bear he's ever touched. He'll touch every single deer. He'll go right up. I mean, even if they're alive, he'll go stand on them, and then all of a sudden this deer gets up and Max goes flying off of it, But that was the first bear he's ever touched. And in the picture, you can see the he's actually sitting quite a ways behind. We couldn't get him any closer than that. So he touched the bear.
He's like, that's close enough.
That was the last time he ever got close to it. Like he was on where I'm taking the picture of them. Max was standing over there. Well, I was by my wife and the bear, and I called him. Well, he made this huge come around and get back behind the bear. He just wouldn't touch it. But he did touch it the first time. So it's baby steps when you're doing bears.
Sure.
Like I was told by one of the veterans, and he said, if your dog doesn't want to track bear, don't do it because you don't want to wreck them. And in the beginning, Max was goofy. Like the camp we were at, there was dead bears laying in the garage that they were skinning out. Nope, I'm not going in that garage. Well,
Wow.
about 6 hours later, he got a little closer to the garage. 2 hours later, now he's actually in the garage. So it was baby steps when we went
Sure.
trying the bear thing, and I'm not going to push it. If I'm available and I can take off, I'll go up and be available to track bear. But the way things have been working out with work, and now I'm actually going elk hunting, I don't think I'm going to have enough time off to actually take off and go for bears this season. So,
When I went bobcat hunting, while I was up there bobcat hunting, there was guys up there. A lot of people were bobcat hunting because it was bobcat season, right? With their hounds. This is hound hunting, right? Not tracking. Right. But a lot of these guys were running coyotes in between the bobcats. Like they didn't have, because they would have clients, because all these guys up there hope that guys from Milwaukee and stuff come up there and pay them to go chase bobcats. Otherwise, it takes them a while to get a tag, right?
Mm-hmm.
So while they're waiting, they're out chasing coyotes. And I was talking to this guy and getting to know this guy that was running cats for me. And I says, and he was a really good tracker. And all the guys up there you could see looked up to him. When we go into the bar to get lunch, they'd all come over and tell him his stories. And he'd be the one that, well, you should be doing this. Well, you should be doing, So he obviously had a positive influence to these guys. And I asked him if, after you get a bobcat, do you go coyote hunting? He goes, if you want to go coyote hunting, we can go coyote hunting, but we ain't going with my dog. He goes, my dog sticks to cats because I don't want it leaving that cat track going after a coyote when we're tracking cats. Do you worry any about Max when you're tracking a deer going after a bear or something because of that?
Well, bear, no. I know that for a fact. He won't. He doesn't want to track a bear. But he does it just because I tell him to do it. He doesn't want it. It's not his favorite. He's different. He's a different dog when he's tracking a bear. He's actually really slow.
He argues a little.
Yeah, he's really slow, like almost slow and methodical, which I wish he was like that all the time, because he knows it's a predator. Actually, I'm more worried about wolves up there when we're tracking bear than I am of bear itself. Because obviously you're up in bear country. And we came across, some dogs actually shut down on wolf tracks. Like they know that's the apex predator. And I didn't see him shut down. I mean, we came across many wolf tracks, and I was actually pretty happy with that he didn't shut down, because I thought he was gonna. When I seen the wolf track, I'm like, oh boy, here we go. And yeah, he sniffed it and then walked right through it. But like what Brian was hitting on earlier about Max peeing on jumped coyotes, we didn't know this for a while. And then I just started putting the puzzles together. Every time there's a track where a coyote has jumped a deer and involved, Max starts marking. And Max never stops to do one or two on a track. Never, never, never. He usually does it before or after. Mm-hmm. But the one time I was actually doing a test line for a puppy out by my house, which was a male. And when we were done, I took Max. I'm like, well, we might as well do it. I already had this line laid for this puppy that went and did it. I'll take Max out there. I noticed Max was marking everywhere. I'm like, that's where that's where all the pieces clicked. I'm like, that explains why you're marking out in the woods. These coyotes are getting on your deer, and you're not happy with that. So it makes sense now. So now it's an easier read if coyotes are involved, because you can clearly see Max starts marking. So that does make our job a little easier now that we figured all of this out. Took a little while, but we got it figured out.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So I know we're running out of time here.
Yeah.
But I really want to do is kind of some do's and don'ts, some things that can help.
Sure.
Help hunters, help us to help them. One of the things I wanted to talk about is your fletchings. I mean, I know they make a bazillion colors to put on your arrows. Please put white. Get something white, because blood on green, blood on red, it's not the right color. When we're looking at arrows, we're looking for color. We're looking for different colors. We're looking for what's inside of that color. We're looking for grit. I mean, arrows tell us a pretty good story. So anything white. I mean, I'm arrows are going to all come back. I'm going to have two whites, I think one blue, and wrap. I'm going to put in a white wrap.
Mm-hmm.
So the more, put it this way, the more white, the better. We can't see nothing on the graphite shafts. I mean, there's
Yeah,
not much there to
that's
see.
true. That's
Black,
true.
it's hard to see. So all we have is the fletching to work with. So yeah, try to put white on your arrows. It's easy. It helps us. While we're talking about arrows, if you shoot a deer, please don't leave your arrow there. Take your arrow out with you. A lot of
Okay.
people use it as a marker. And two reasons we don't like that. One, we want to see the arrow. And the biggest reason, we don't want to get there with the dog. He knocks over the arrow, and now he's stepping on a broadhead, cutting his feet wide open.
Sure.
So that is, take that arrow home. Don't clean it. Don't do nothing. Take it home and actually take good pictures of the fletching. Just keep.
I mean, would you say just take pictures of it right away out in the field and that?
Oh yeah, right away. Yeah,
Right away. Get
Take
all
some
that
pictures.
that information.
Because as blood dries, it dries darker.
Right.
So we want to see it while it's wet, because then we can tell the difference between, is that liver, vein, artery, lung, whatever.
Does it have fat on? Is there gut matter? Is a bunch of fat on it?
Yeah, and a lot of the fat actually, that's where the shaft of the arrow helps.
Yeah.
Because that fat does stick to the shaft pretty good,
Sure.
and you can clearly see it. But gut matter, yes, gut matter on the fletching. Like we can if you take a picture and you send it to us, we sit there and we zoom in on our phones and we try to get as close as we can, trying to look to see what's inside that blood. What do we see inside of there? And that's going to tell us more of a story on where this deer was hit, which now tells us our wait times. So definitely, take the arrow, take it home, take pictures out in the field, take it home, have it in your quiver.
Take your good camera out there with you, your good phone. Don't take your Nokia Razor out there with you and try taking pictures.
Yeah, right.
Can I put in for a second?
Yeah.
I was thinking about the buck I had you come out and track for me, Scott.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're giving really good advice, but I think there should be an accept in there.
There is a disclaimer part. Yep.
You hit a liver
Don't
deer.
always get your arrow.
Sometimes they go very short distance and they're really close. If you remember on my deer, that deer literally, I shot him at 10 yards. He bedded at 20. I had to sneak out of there. I didn't want to go anywhere
exactly.
near
There. So yes, there is going to be circumstances where you can't do that, and I get it. And I mean, trust me, there's circumstances where the arrow's in the deer, or it's a pass through in tall grass and you can't find it. Yeah, it happens. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely don't take a picture if it's in the deer.
Yeah. That now leads us into the next one: deer body language. Try to be your best witness, because you're the only witness. So we want to know everything that deer did from the time it was shot till the time you lost sight of it. We want to know his behavior. That's telling us a story. So again, now that goes back to our wait time on how long are we going to wait? Obviously time of year changes that too. Season, like Brian was talking about earlier, early season, yeah, we'll probably shot at 12, 13, maybe 14 hours. Now get into Halloween weekend. No, that's going to be 24, no matter what. Sure, is there exceptions? Absolutely. Definitely some. I know there's, like, on the back of the liver, there's some main arteries that feed the liver. Well, if you hit that, sure, that deer's going to be dead in probably 6 hours. But if you hit the bigger part of the liver, then no, it's not going to be dead in 6 hours. So yeah, there's a lot. It happens, and I get it. So we still keep our wait times where they are because we want the deer dead. We don't want to come up on a live deer again for dog safety. Um, yeah, and I'm not saying, I'm not telling people not to go track your deer. Absolutely, go track your deer, but do your best to stay off the line the best you can. Mark the trail with whatever toilet paper, whatever. The best is that people actually mark what they did. That helps us tremendously when we get there, because then we're not guessing. Is it, because I'll ask Hunter, well, is this where you ended? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if we were here or over there. So I mean, if you mark it, that helps us,
Like some
because
flagging tape or some.
anything,
Yeah.
Paper. Yeah, toilet paper is a good one.
Yep.
toilet paper is the best one because it's biodegradable, so it's gone. And the next rain, it's gone.
I don't know about the stuff I use is pretty hardy stuff. I mean, maybe it'll eventually break down, but
But body language, that's huge. Now, granted, yes, there's sometimes the body language doesn't coincide to what actually the shot is. It happens, but most of the time it's relatively close. The hunchback, the deer runs 35, 40 yards, stops, stands there for 5 minutes, and then slowly walks away. Okay. All of this is telling us our story we need to know.
right. And they're not all absolutes, right? But it helps you put the pieces. The more pieces to the puzzle you have, the clearer the picture is going to be.
Yes, yes. And if you are tracking your own deer, and let's just say, yes, you and three of your buddies, you guys walk straight down that line. Fine. You haven't left the line at this point. So it's okay to walk down that line. But now you're going to get to the spot where, we don't see any blood anymore. Now maybe it's a time. Okay, now maybe it's a time we better back out. Mark that spot where you left. I don't care as long as you don't go the same direction as the deer. Obviously, at this point, you're probably going to turn around and go back the way you came, which is perfect. But let's just say in this case, somebody has to go make a left-hand turn to get to the truck, so they're going to go straight to the truck. Fine, as long as you mark that. So when the dog gets there, if he makes that left-hand turn, we know that was you and not the deer. We'll take the dog back on the exact line again.
There's no benefit to lying to you about anything. I mean,
No, there
it's
really
more
isn't.
important. Like, even if you know that you screwed something up, it's best just to be
Just
upfront with you about it. And so you're going to cut some time out there instead of playing this guessing game and that, like, oh, well, you know what? Maybe we did walk down that way. Well, like, yeah, no shit. And now we wasted how much more time?
The dog tells us. I mean, really, guys, say, well, we didn't grid search. Well,
You're not going to scold them.
I'm like,
You're
well,
not.
I'm like, you guys walked around out here, did you? We might have. It's like, just tell us.
Yeah.
We don't care. I mean, okay, because they think that because they grid searched it, we're not going to come. No, that's not the case at all. We're still coming. We're not. Again, our end goal here is to find a dead deer. That's our end goal. So I'm not gonna because you made 10 mistakes. I'm not gonna say, well, we're not coming now because you did all of this wrong. We're still going.
Mm-hmm.
In the end, our objective is we want to find as many of these animals dead as we possibly can.
Sure.
So Scott, you had said that like in November you might do 7 tracks in a day on a Saturday or something. Where it gets kind of nuts. Most people do 7 hard tracks maybe in a lifetime.
Yeah.
So my point of that is that you're getting a lot of experience. And your experience with the dog and your experience with tracking, you and Brian both are learning a whole hell of a lot. And these guys would probably be in their best interest, even before they track, just to call you, get some advice if they think they might need you.
Oh yeah,
Before
nothing. But we're not 99.
Yeah, you should go out and track the deer, or maybe you shouldn't, or here's how long you should wait.
Yep.
I'm sure you've got all kinds of advice you could give these guys just based on what they tell you in a phone call.
Yep.
Both Scott and I's wives can tell you that all fall we're on the phone with more guys that we don't go track for than we actually do, because that's how many calls we do get as well. But that advice is, I always joke like we should charge 99 cents a minute, like the old 900 number days. But Scott and I, again, it's his point. We literally just want people to find deer. It doesn't have to be with us. And we've gotten those calls where, the guy calls and it's like, man, we're booked, right? Like we got no space. And so, yeah, we have to add, it gets really tough at those times because you hear this guy and he did everything right. But then you can at least give him the direction and what to do and whatnot. Like, a lot of guys I have to tell when they say the phrase, my buddy thinks we should go take a look tonight. I'm like, well, I don't know you very well, but I'll tell you this, I'm a better buddy than he is, because that's not a buddy. Looking at a gut-filled arrow, it's like, go tonight, you're just going to make it harder tomorrow.
Yeah, I've been with guys that just, some guys just think they gotta go look. They gotta go poke around, and you're looking at the arrow and you're like, there's grit on this arrow. Don't do it. And you're like, nah, I found one back in '89. Okay. Do what you want to do, but you're going to jump that deer and we're never going to find it.
Yeah. And to your point, Dan, Scott and I, we probably each have been on more tracks than most hunters will their entire lifetime. We have seen a lot of crazy stuff. And so, yeah, that information we've gathered, like I said, it's addicting. It's like a compounding addiction, because it's like you almost want to see that next oddball scenario. Like, we've seen it all now, right? And you talk to the other trackers. Nope. Haven't seen it all. All of a sudden you see a new one, and it's just mind-blowing what they'll do at times.
Sure. Well, we seem to have lost Scott. I got a message here. He goes, I lost you guys. I don't know if his internet went out or what, but we're at that 2.5 hour mark anyways. I want to thank you both, you and Scott, for coming on here tonight. Brian, it's been a pleasure.
Wrap up, I guess.
Oh, Dan must be on the phone with him there. But yeah, a big thanks to both you guys for coming on and sharing the information that I think a lot of folks maybe need to hear. For some, this is information maybe you already knew, and maybe you picked some new things up here. But I think at the end of the day, it's important to understand some of the do's and don'ts and what's all involved with tracking deer and that. And so we definitely, well, let's see if Dan's got a.
So yeah, Scott's
Does internet go out or something?
Said sinking, and he lost
Oh
view.
no!
But Brian can wrap it up for him. And
yeah, I just like I was just saying, I'm like I appreciate these guys coming on, taking the time and sharing the information. Great stories. Love to have you guys on again at some point again, tell some more stories. And if anybody's looking to reach out. Again, if you guys want to save this number here, Brian, where else can they find Max's Deer Recovery?
Where he is one of the dogs on that list, and so that's another thing. We all work together.
Yeah, it's not a competition.
But no, by no means, especially down in actually, I don't know of any competition across the state in the network. We all work together. We'll constantly be calling each other and finding out, because our ranges are kind of big. And so we've got another couple trackers down here that it's like, oh, wait, you're going to be in, whatever, you're going to be in Ozaukee County tomorrow? Like, hey, I just got a call from another guy there. We drive a lot. there's a lot of driving between tracks. So, I mean, sometimes it just comes down to that. Like the first phone call comes in and it's Ixonia, right? And it's like, okay, that's where we're going to be starting tomorrow. And then, if we get more tracks that way, we just fill them in around there so that we're not
Sure.
driving
I
an
know,
hour and a half, 2 hours. I've spent like 6 hours in my truck in a day before, and it's not fun.
Mhm.
Max loves it because he just sleeps between the tracks.
Yeah.
When you
Recharges.
put the image up before the phone number was blocked by the comment that's still up there, or the question that's still up there.
What's that?
But I said when you put the image up there before, the phone number that you're talking about was blocked by the comment or the question that's still on the screen. Yeah,
There's
see, I
nothing on
can't
there.
see it. The phone number can't be seen. But put the information in the contact in the description underneath the video.
Yeah. There's no comment on the screen.
There is on mine.
What
there is
comment is it?
It's the question: would a heavily wounded buck go uphill getting bumped? It's been up since I put it up there.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. We'll put the information in the message underneath the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll add it to the description there for sure.
But I would say, guys that are listening to this, don't wait till you shoot a buck and then go, oh, who knows a tracker, and start going online. Who knows a tracker, and start looking all over the place. Take Max's number, put it in your phone, then you have it. Deer track guy or whatever you got to call it, so that you can find it in your phone.
Yep.
And then you can just send a text or whatever. Hey, you available? Somebody who's available. I hit one. You don't have to go searching. You don't have to. It's a lot easier that way.
And we do get back to you. There's been times Scott and I have been sitting together on a Friday night or something, getting done tracking, and I'm on the phone with a guy, he's on the phone with a guy. We're each missing 2 calls at the same time. We get back to all of those.
Sure.
We will at least get back, even if it's to say like we're booked, or a lot of times we'll have another tracker lined up for him before we even call back. Sometimes it's not us that calls back; it's another tracker. So we do totally. Dan's right. The sooner you call, the better. The more honest you are that, yep, I didn't hit him perfect. You didn't hit him perfect. I would highly recommend calling us as soon as you can, just because we do get busy, and we'd rather take the guy who let us know right away that he made a mistake than the guy who went and grid switched it 10 times.
The big question that people are probably thinking but not asking is, do you charge? How much money do you charge, or what do you expect?
Yeah, there's a charge. I wish Scott was on. I think it's still $225. That's whether
talking with Scott yesterday. He didn't really want to get into the pricing and that a whole lot.
I couldn't remember
because it varies so much between with travel and things like that. I mean, I think that's the common theme with most guys.
What I was going at though was it is very affordable. It's not like somebody's getting rich up.
Right.
Yeah, no. The goal is to afford Max's food for the year. It's a break even, folks. If you hire us,
I know a lot of cases you guys are missing work, and you would be making more at work. So.
Yeah, if you see the truck I roll up in, you'll understand we're not getting loaded.
All right. Well, this feels like a good spot to wrap up. It's unfortunate that we lost Scott there, but again, Scott, I know you're still watching. We appreciate your time, Brian. Thanks for coming on as well, taking the time out of your night and sharing all this information with all of us. Guys, stick around next week. We got another great guest. We're going back to our top 5 bucks with a whole new guest. We're going to keep that under wraps until it's out there. So until next time, guys, be safe, have fun. We'll see you next week.